Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please set our humble senses.
Jai. You accept mine? I'll go to Srila Prabhupada. Jia Kumari from Pakistan. Are you the one that Bimla Prasad Prabhu was telling me all about? You have to unmute yourself. It looks like you're trying.
In library, I can't speak and I can't even write. I don't know why.
Okay, I can hear you softly, or maybe it's my speakers. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, say that again, please.
I said I'm in library. I can't speak loud and I can't even write because I don't know what is the issue with my chat box.
Okay. Oh my goodness. All right, no worries. So I guess we'll wait for others to join, Rukmini.
Just for 2 minutes if you can.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Should I start with Mangalacharanam? Rukmini, you're the hostess. What should we do? Looks like she froze. Rukmini Harisevani, Mataji, would you like to say some
Yes.
3 words, or should I just jump into it?
Yes. So thank you so much, Mataji. We welcome Hargis Prabhupada Priya Mataji. We are really fortunate that Mataji has already taken our previous units also. So, and all the devotees already know Mataji. And we are really blessed that Mataji got agreed to teach us 3 chapters of Canto, first 3 chapters of Canto 6. So we would like to chant Hare Krishna mantra and be really thankful to Mataji for taking the sessions, for accepting the request. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Krishna.
Hare.
Hare Ram, Rama Ram, Hare Hare. So we heartedly welcome Mataji.
Hare Krishna, thank you. It's my pleasure to be back with you again. And this is the first class of your Bhakti Vaibhava module. Oh, no, 2. No, it's 4, 5, 6. So it's first class of the 6th canto. You've been doing this for a while. Sorry, getting confused here. All right, so we're starting. Let's do Mangalacharanam. Om Jnanatirmirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militanjena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sakujatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai. So can anybody who is at all humanly possible please turn on your videos so that I can have a little reciprocation here. And thank you to those of you who came on time and already have your videos on. I really appreciate that. As someone who took a lot of Zoom classes, all my Bhaktivedanta classes were on Zoom. My experience is that if video is off and the mute is on, then there's a very strong tendency to do other things at the same time as class. And that's not very favorable for our absorption of Srimad Bhagavatam. Because in the very beginning of Bhagavatam, it says that if one attentively and submissively hears this message of Bhagavatam, then the Supreme Lord is at once established in the heart. So that's the result. If we attentively hear the Bhagavatam, the Lord will be established in our heart. If we inattentively hear the Bhagavatam, the Lord will not be established in our heart. So from my perspective, what could be more important? Having the Lord established in your heart or something else that you're trying to do at the same time? So at least for this time that we're together here, Srimad Bhagavatam, I have put everything else on hold during this class. I'm not doing another thing during this class. And I hope that you also are not trying to do another thing during the class. So I understand that maybe this is not the usual time that you have class, so your daily schedule is not ideal, but at least try your best. And that helps me because when I see your faces and I see that you're taking it in, then that encourages me to speak. Okay. All right. So thank you. We're starting Canto 6. Canto 6 is a really wonderful canto. There's a lot of very important lessons here. And although there are 10 topics of Srimad Bhagavatam, does anyone know the verse that you learned from the 2nd canto? If you do, just unmute yourself and say it, please.
Atra sarga visargascha sthanam poshanam udaya manvantara ishanu katha nirodho vimuktir ashraya.
Very good. Thank you. And what's the meaning?
These are the 10 subject matters of Srimad Bhagavatam. Atra, the first incarnation, Atra Sarga. Atra Sarga, Visarga. Sarga means first incarnation. Visarga is the second incarnation. First is from Krishna, second is from Brahmaji. Atra Sarga Visargascha Sthanam. One. Sorry, Mataji, I don't know the complete translation.
Okay, no worries. So, yeah, we've got all the, does anybody else know? So we got Sarga, primary creation, Visarga, secondary creation. Then, wasn't this one of your memorization verses? From BV1? Somehow it's easier to remember the Sanskrit than the English, right? But what's the point of remembering the Sanskrit if you don't remember the English? So, Sthanam means the planetary systems, how they're situated. Poshanam means the Lord's protection. Uttaya is the creative impetus. Then there's Manvantar. That's the rotations of the Manus. Isha Anukata, the topics related to Isha, the supreme controller. Nirodho means annihilation, right? Mukti, liberation, and Ashraya is Samam Bonam, Supreme Lord, our supreme shelter, Lord Krishna. So this sixth canto, although all the topics are mixed up, it's not that one canto is one topic, but this canto deals a lot with the topic of Poshanam. And we're going to hear that in this pastime that we're talking about in the first 3 chapters with Ajamil, how the Lord arranges for the protection of Ajamil. Although at first it doesn't seem like it, but after the Lord always comes through. So that's an important lesson and a reassurance for us. Okay, so let's look at the chapter summary. And can someone just read the first paragraph of that chapter summary?
Throughout Srimad Bhagavatam, there are descriptions of 10 subject matters, including creation, subsequent creation, and the planetary systems. Shukdev Goswami, the speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, has already described creation, subsequent creation, and the planetary system in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th cantos. Now in this 6th canto, which consists of 19 chapters, he will describe Poshana, or protection by the Lord. The first chapter relates the history of Ajamil.
Or you can just, you don't need to read the whole thing, just that. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so the whole reason for this chapter has to deal with this concept of Poshanam, because what was described in the 5th canto, the end of the 5th canto? Please be quick. If you know, just say it. The last thing that was described.
The expansion of external body of the Lord.
But like the last chapter, there's a description of many different planets, specifically which planets?
Hellish planets.
The hellish planets, yeah. So after hearing the description of the hellish planets, Maharaj Pariksha is wondering, how can people be protected from having to suffer on those hellish planets? How can they be saved? So this is how the Canto 6 starts. All right, let's go into the verses here. So I'll read the Sanskrit for the first one. From then on, we'll just read the English. So Shri Parikshit Uvacha Nivritti Marga Katita Ado Bhagavata Yata Krama Yoga Palabdena Ramanayad Asamshriti. Translation. Maharaj Parikshit said, O my Lord, O Shukadev Goswami, you have already described in the 2nd canto the path of liberation, Nivritti Marg. By following that path, one is certainly elevated gradually to the highest planetary system, Brahmaloka, from which one is promoted to the spiritual world, along with Lord Brahma. Thus one's repetition of birth and death in the material world ceases. And so, does anyone remember those two paths? The two paths of liberation described in the second canto? Yeah, but I mean, there were two. Yeah. So one is that you go directly there, just you leave your body and go directly back to Godhead. And the other one was like the scenic route, that you go step by step to the higher planets, next higher planet. When one higher planetary system is going to be destroyed, you go to the next one, escape the fire, and then you finally go to Brahmaloka. And then when Brahma goes back to Godhead, you go back to Godhead with him. So that's the slow path. So Maharaj Parikshit is saying that you've described these paths of liberation, by which one can go to Brahmaloka and then go back to Godhead. So his thought is that since you've already described the paths of liberation, these two different options at least, and so people know that they can get liberated, why would they not take these paths? Why would they not follow the process of liberation? Right? Because everybody's suffering in this world. Someone says, oh, you can get out of this suffering, you can get liberated if you just do this. Why would you not do it? What are your thoughts? Why is it that people are not practicing religious systems that can liberate them? Rukmini Harisevani.
Mataji, I'm so sorry. I raised hand to answer the
Oh,
previous.
that was from before. What are your thoughts on this? Or maybe you can give some examples of, this might help, give some examples of things that, there are many things in life that we know are going to result in suffering, but we do them anyway. And there are many things in life that we know are going to help us to be happy, and we don't do them. Right? Like, for example, when we're kids in school, we all learn what is a healthy diet, right? We all learn what are the four food groups, and that we should eat 5 fruits or vegetables a day or whatever, right? So I assume that in school in India you learn that stuff too. In the West we learn all. So we learn what a healthy diet is. We learn what junk food is. We learn that what we're not supposed to eat. But still we eat so much junk food, and we often don't eat a very healthy diet, or we don't get exercise or something. So we know what we're supposed to do to be happy, but we don't do it. And the same way people know the paths of liberation, they're given in the scriptures, but they don't do it. Ganga Shakti.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. So Mataji, people already know the paths of liberation, but do not follow it because we come to the material world with desires. And so the presence of those desires is so overwhelming that liberation is not our agenda, or at least not on high, is not high in our priority list. Just as when we are younger, we may know about healthy diets, but it's very difficult for teenagers or young children to follow that healthy diet, although they may be learning in school that this is a healthy diet and you should not eat such and such things, but they're not able to do it because they are driven by that desire. And that desire is what is most important for them, although the knowledge of the healthy diet is there, but it is not appealing for them.
Okay, good. Yeah, so they know, but they don't want to. And what causes them to not want to? What pushes them to want other things? Yes, Gita Krishna Prabhu? Taste. The taste buds, particularly in terms of diet. Yeah. And also on a more philosophical level, the 3 modes of nature, right? Because Krishna talks about we're talking about food. So Krishna talks about food in the mode of, foods in the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance. And if we're in the mode of passion, then our taste is going to be for foods in the mode of passion. If we're in the mode of goodness, our taste will be for foods in the mode of goodness, etc. So it's the modes that push us to, and that's what Prabhupada talks about in his commentaries here, that these three modes. And Arjuna asked the same question in the Bhagavad Gita, right? What is this force that pushes us to do things that we know are bad for us, that we don't want to do, actually? And Krishna says that it's lust, and that lust is born of the mode of passion. So behind it all is the modes. Okay. So Maharaj Parikshit, he raises this question. All right, let's go to text 2. Someone please read the translation there.
O great sage Shukdev Goswami, unless the living entity is freed from the infection of the material modes of nature, he receives different types of bodies in which to enjoy or suffer. And according to the body, he is understood to have various inclinations. By following these inclinations, he traverses the path that called Praviti Marg, by which one may be elevated to the heavenly planets, as you have already described in the 3rd canto.
Thank you. Yeah, so these modes don't just push us to, eat the wrong foods or, not do things that are good for us, but they push us into our next body. He's talking about that we receive different types of bodies due to the infection of the material modes of nature, and we rotate around and around in the cycle of repeated birth and death. So this is that's why Krishna talks so much about the 3 modes of nature in the Bhagavad Gita, because we really need to understand how these modes affect us, how they influence us, how they drag us into different conditions of life, different situations, push us into making wrong decisions. And the whole point is that if we understand how these things work, then we can take control of the situation and be like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to do the thing that Krishna says is in the mode of goodness or transcendence, even better. So, okay, let's go to, let's have someone read text 3, 4, and 5.
You have also described at the end of 5th canto the varieties of hellish life that result from impious activities, and you have described in the 4th canto the first Manvantara, which was prescribed over the Swambhu Manu, the son of Lord Brahma. My dear Lord, you have described the dynasties and characteristics of King Priyavata and King Uttanpad. The Supreme Personality of God had created this material world with various universes, planetary system, planets and stars, with varied land, seas, oceans, mountains, rivers, gardens, and trees, all with different characteristics. These are divided among this planet Earth, the luminaries in the sky, and the lower planetary systems. You have very clearly described these planets and the living entities who live on them.
Yeah, so he's mentioning this because he understands that the reason that Shukdev Goswami described all these things is he did so with the intention of educating people how to avoid suffering. Right? These are the ways that you suffer. These are the species of life in which you suffer. These are the planets on which you're going to suffer, and the different ways that they suffer on those planets. But it comes back to this. But he's building his point leading up to this question is that because of the strong influence of the modes of passion and ignorance, people still are not able to avoid suffering. So what can be done about this? So you can see here Maharaj Parikshit's compassion. How can people be saved from suffering? How can people be saved from repeated birth and death in this world? especially how can they be saved from going to hellish planets that you just described. So he's really concerned, and he wants to know how people can be helped. So this is a Vaishnava's concern. Let's have someone read text 6. Yeah, that's where this comes up.
O greatly fortunate and opulent Shukadev Goswami, now kindly tell me how human beings may be saved from having to enter hellish conditions in which they suffer terrible pains.
Yeah. So Prabhupada mentions in the purport here that this is the Vaishnava's concern, that a Vaishnava is paradukkha dukhi, that he has no personal troubles. What does that mean, that a Vaishnava has no problems? I could tell you, I have a lot of problems in my life that I could tell you about. I'm sure that if we all get together and ask each other, what are your problems? We sit down and make a list, we could list many problems. So what does it mean that a Vaishnava has no problems? Ganga Shakti.
Mataji, probably means that a Vaishnava has problems like anybody else, because this is a material world, there are going to be problems, but the focus is not on their own problem. They are not so worried about what is happening to them, or that they understand that whatever is happening to them is bound to happen. But the focus is how to, like Parikshit Maharaj is being compassionate here, the focus is on how to get relief for the other people.
Okay, so we have problems, but we're not focusing on them. We're focusing more on other people. But we still have problems. That doesn't explain how we don't have problems. It's just saying that we ignore our problems. Any other thoughts? Rukmini?
Mataji, two things are there. First is it's not like a Vaishnav. You asked that Vaishnav doesn't have problem. So Vaishnav, it takes time to become a Vaishnava. So before that, before becoming a Bhakta, if I talk about myself, and I heard in a lecture that more than 90% devotees are just practicing if in ISKCON only. His Gesman Prasad Prabhu gave this percentage. So 90%, more than 90% are practicing devotees, and just 10% are those who already, are really Vaishnavas. So first thing is this, and secondly, the focus. Yes, the four miseries are there. Adi Devi, Adi Bhauti, Adhyatmik. But when a devotee focus on bhakti, these things actually, the pain is suppose if a person is having some pain, so he may be feeling the pain, but he may not get affected from that pain. If it see the senior devotees, like we have in our like 2 GBCs, I can name that His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj. There are so many. His Holiness Gopal Krishna Swami Maharaj. They have the health issues. His Holiness Kadam Kantan Swami Maharaj. He left the body because of cancer, but he was not affected by such thing.
Okay, he didn't see it as a problem, right? That's Ganga Shakti, did you want to add something?
Yes, Mataji, probably a Vaishnava is not existing at the bodily platform. So since they are not on the bodily platform, they're operating at the soul platform. So obviously all the miseries that are related, all the miseries of this material world are related to the body and mind. And because they are not on that platform of gross body and subtle body, so obviously probably that is why it is said that they don't have problems.
But even so, they feel the pain. It's not that they don't feel the pain, like if they have a broken leg, they're going to feel the pain. If they have, appendicitis, they're going to feel it. So it's not that they're, so aloof from their bodies that they don't suffer those, physical pains, mental pains. But the thing is that they know that their life is in Krishna's hands, and that everything that Krishna does is good. So even though I'm suffering, even though I'm feeling pains, even though I'm mentally disgusted or disappointed or frustrated, all this is Krishna's mercy. This is all Krishna's mercy, that somehow he's putting me through this experience. This experience is something that is a gift that he's given me for my growth, for my spiritual advancement, for my purification, or to help others, or something, because they have complete faith. Vaishnava has complete faith that everything that Krishna does is good. So this problem is not a problem. It's actually very good for me. So as devotees, anyone who has surrendered to Krishna, when you're looking at your problems in life, which are there, they're always going to be there in the material world. Don't look at it as a problem. Look at it as, wow, this is a gift from Krishna. How is this helping me? Instead of, oh, how can I make this go away? How can I get rid of this problem? Think, how is this helping me? How is this helping me to be more Krishna conscious, more compassionate, more detached, more taking shelter of Krishna more, like that? Because Krishna always protects the devotee, and that's what we're going to learn here. So even if it's bad, it's going to be all right, because Krishna is going to fix it. We're just in our classes here. I'm in Dallas now. In our morning Bhagavatam classes, we're studying about Vena, and so King Anga, Maharaj Anga, he had this son, terrible son, Vena, right? He was like a worst son you could ever imagine. So it's like a parent's nightmare, is to have a child like Vena, who just, beats up the kids at school, who is disobedient and horrible, and, kills people and tortures animals. It's like, imagine having a child like that. But Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport there that actually it was a great blessing for Maharaj Anga, because he could be detached. Otherwise, you have a nice, sweet, obedient devotee child at home, and they sit with you and chant japa, and they help you with the cooking, and they come and pay obeisances to you every morning and ask for your blessings, and they keep their room very clean, and they're very smart and good in school, and the teachers are always praising them. It's like you're going to get so attached to that child. So sometimes Krishna, he makes arrangements in our lives to help us in different ways, and for each one of us it's different, because we all have different attachments, different anarthas, and different mentalities. So we all get different problems, but they're all for our benefit. And if we see these things as blessings of the Lord, then all of our distresses can actually be transformed into bliss. We can actually become very blissful in the middle of the worst problem, because they're actually, the Lord's giving them to us to catalyze our devotion. Yes, Ganga Shakti?
Mataji, I have a question. May I ask now or later?
Go ahead.
So Mataji, you mentioned that the Vaishnava feels the pain, but since he understands that everything, because he surrendered, he understands that everything is for his good. So when we look at this principle, then a lot of times with ourselves as well as with other people whom we are preaching to, or people we are connected with, there is a tendency to become hard-hearted because of this principle. So we don't accept the truth of feeling something. We feel that if we know the philosophy, then we shouldn't feel. So if there's, suppose, for example, a loss of a parent or a spouse or a child or a friend, we are unable to, as devotees, we are unable to address that feeling of loss, because we are focused on living the philosophy of being surrendered and understanding that Krishna is doing this for my benefit. And sometimes if we are not focused on that, then we go too much into feeling and forget about all the philosophy. Is it how is it possible for us to maintain the right balance so that we remain personal and we have that thing of accepting people's feelings as well as our own first? At the same time, we are able to live the principle properly.
Yeah, thank you. Good question. So there's, in spiritual life, in so many different levels and different factors, there's a way that we do things externally, and there's a way that we are internally. So this is one of them. That externally we have to be normal. That, if a loved one dies in someone's family, then we're not going to be, oh, that's Krishna's mercy. We're not going to say that. We're going to be, oh, I'm sorry, please accept my condolences. That must be very hard for you. I'm here for you if you want to talk about it. Is there any way that I can help you and your family to, make life easier for you while you go through the grieving process? So we have to be normal and show compassion and affection and care for devotees when they're going through suffering. But internally, we know that this is Krishna's mercy. And so we're not disturbed. We're not confused. It doesn't affect our faith. In fact, it reinforces our faith. Because sometimes, when there's suffering, we can think, oh, God doesn't exist. Actually, Krishna, he doesn't care about me. All my devotion has been useless, because otherwise, how could Krishna let this happen if he actually loves me? If he actually is reciprocating on my service. So there has to be an internal, internally we have to be very convinced that everything that Krishna does is good. But externally, we don't necessarily say that to somebody who's going through a problem. We try to be friendly and supportive. Okay. All right, we have to go on. We have a lot to get through in this short time. Let's go to text, whatever the next one is. Let's see. Let's do, text 7 and 8. Someone please read those two.
Sukadev Goswami replied, "My dear king, if before one's next death, whatever impious acts one has performed in this life with his mind, words, and body are not counteracted through proper atonement, according to the description of the Manu Samhita and other Dharma Shastras, one will certainly enter the hellish planets after death and undergo terrible sufferings, as I have previously described to you." Text 8. Therefore, before one's next death comes, as long as one's body is strong enough, one should quickly adopt the process of atonement according to Shastra. Otherwise, one's time will be lost and the reactions of his sins will increase. As an expert physician diagnoses and treats a disease according to its gravity, one should undergo atonement according to the severity of one's sins.
Right. So this is Shukadeva Goswami's first answer to Maharaj Parikshit's question: how can people be saved from hell? They need to do atonement. And actually, different religions all have different processes for atonement, right? In Vedic, in the Vedic system, there are Dharma Shastras that prescribe different atonements for different sins. Christians, they have the self-flagellation that they do something wrong and they beat themselves in the back with a whip. And I don't know anybody who did that in Christianity, but I heard about that the monks, Christian monks used to do that. At the end of text 7 purport, Prabhupada writes, actually, it is a fact that one who does not take to devotional service must follow the decision of these scriptures, these Dharma Shastras, by performing pious acts to counteract his impious acts. This is known as atonement. So Prabhupada, he's not just writing off these things as, oh, these are all useless. He's saying that, yeah, these are there and one has to do them if one's not a devotee. Because we're going to learn that through devotion, devotees don't have to do these things. If you take to bhakti, specifically chanting the holy name, then you don't have to worry about these things. But if you don't, then you have to do these things. So, I mean, bhakti is the best path in so many ways, but this is yet another way that bhakti is the best path, is that it frees us from so many duties and obligations and rituals that otherwise people have to perform to counteract their sins. So, but what's the problem with atonement?
May I speak, Mataji?
Yes, please.
The problem with atonement is that it does not take away your propensity to commit that mistake or that sin again. It just atones for what I have done, but it does not take away my proclivity to do it again.
Yeah, so we're going to hear about that. That's going to be Maharaj Parikshit's concern also. And also because atonement is just, it's basically karma kanda, you know, that you're doing a material good act in order to counteract a material bad act, but they're both material. So it's like you're trying to use a material solution to solve a material problem, but it's all material. So it doesn't actually lead to your spiritual advancement very significantly. I mean, in one sense, it builds up some pious credits because you're following Vedic injunctions, but at the same time, it's not necessarily it's not necessarily in Krishna consciousness. It can all be done in total material consciousness. So, yeah. All right, so let's read about that, the shortcomings of karma kanda. Someone read 9 and 10, please.
Hare Krishna.
Go ahead, please.
Translation. Maharaj Parikshit said, one may know that sinful activity is injurious for him because he actually sees that a criminal is punished by the government and rebuked by people in general, and because he hears from scriptures and learned scholars that one is thrown into hellish conditions in the next life for committing sinful acts. Nevertheless, in spite of such knowledge, one is forced to commit sins again and again, even after performing acts of atonement. Therefore, what is the value of such atonement? Sometimes one who is very alert so as not to commit sinful acts and victimized by sinful life again, I therefore consider this process of repeated sinning and atoning to be useless. It is like the bathing of an elephant, for an elephant cleanses itself by taking a full bath, but then throws dust over its head and body as soon as it returns to the lane.
Thank you. Yeah. So in the Nectar of Instruction, a couple of examples are given that the criminal, he commits a crime, he goes to jail, he gets his punishment, and then he comes out and he does the same crime again because he still has the mentality. Or that someone a man who engages in illicit sex, he gets some venereal disease, he suffers like anything, he goes to the doctor, he gets some treatment, he gets cured, and again, illicit sex. Why? Because he still has sex desire. He's still pushed by the mode of passion, by lust, to commit that activity. So Maharaj Parikshit is saying, no, that's not going to work. So many. So this was a test. Prabhupada says this was a test. Shukadeva Goswami was testing Maharaj Parikshit's understanding, because he knows Maharaj Parikshit's a devotee. He's not going to be convinced he's not going to accept a karma kanda answer. So he's like, no, I'm not accepting that this material processes, Vedic rituals for atonement are going to really significantly help. So he rejects that, as we just heard. So now Shukadeva Goswami, that was the first test. Now Shukadeva Goswami is going to give him the second test. So let's see what the second test is here. Please read text 11. Or did you just read 11? No. Read 9 and 10. Okay, read 11.
Shukdev Goswami, the son of Vyasdev, answered, my dear king, since acts meant to neutralize impious actions are also fruitive, they will not release one from the tendency to act fruitively. Persons who subject themselves to the rules and regulations of atonement are not at all intelligent. Indeed, they are in the mode of darkness. Unless one is freed from the mode of ignorance, trying to counteract one action through another is useless, because this will not uproot one's desires. Thus, even though one may superficially seem pious, he will undoubtedly be prone to act impiously. Therefore, real atonement is enlightenment in perfect knowledge.
Vedanta, by which one understands the supreme absolute truth.
All right, so here Shukadeva Goswami confirms Maharaj Parikshit's answer. He's like, yes, you're totally right. This process, this actions to counteract your bad actions are useless. And trying to counteract one action to another is useless. So he totally agrees. And now he proposes the second thing, that real atonement is enlightenment in perfect knowledge. So he says, prayashchitam vimarshanam. As vimarshanam means, the dictionary meaning is research and discussion on a topic. So it's basically like philosophical speculation. Or Srila Prabhupada explains that this is Jnana Kanda. So now he's taking him from Karma Kanda to Jnana Kanda. And in this context, it's implied that the speculation is on Vedanta. So if you want to be free from your sinful reactions and avoid hell, then you need to study Vedanta. And you need to philosophically speculate on the topic of Vedanta. And this is what the Jnanis do. So, yeah. All right, let's go on to text 12.
My dear king, if a diseased person eats the pure, uncontaminated food prescribed by a physician, he is gradually cured and the infection of disease can no longer touch him. Similarly, if one follows the regulative principles of knowledge, he gradually progresses toward liberation from material contamination.
Okay, so it sounds like at least this process of Jnana Kanda is a little more hopeful than Karma Kanda, because by it one gradually progresses towards liberation, gradually gets purified, because after all it's Vedanta, so there's something there that's better than just Karma Kanda. But what's the problem with this Vimarshanam process, with speculation on Vedanta? I'm sure that in your studies and classes that you've heard many, many reasons that Srila Prabhupada gives for why we're not Jnanis, why the process of Jnana or Jnana Kanda is rejected. Okay, Ganga Shakti.
Mataji, is it because speculation has a tendency to lead us to impersonalism?
Yes, yeah, that's the main reason. Yeah, when you speculate, if you're just studying Vedanta, see, that's why Vyasadeva wasn't satisfied even after compiling Vedanta Sutra and all the Vedas, that's what Narada Muni said, that aren't you satisfied with elucidating the impersonal Brahman? Is this not are you not feeling complete after doing that? He's being sarcastic. So yeah, he says the fault is that your fault was that you didn't make it very clear that Krishna is the supreme, that he's the highest, and that he's the absolute truth, that he's the goal of life. And you need to tell people about his pastimes, his qualities. Otherwise, they're going to go to impersonalism, because that's what happens with the Jnanis. They tend to become impersonalists or Mayavadis, and then the result of that kind of impersonal liberation is that there's no service, right? So that's why devotees reject the 5 kinds of liberation, because there's no opportunity for service. And so it's contrary to the real swarup of the living entity, which is Jivera Swarupoi Krishnara Nityadas, that every soul it's not that some souls are devotees and other souls are eternally impersonalists, that their eternal situation is, their constitutional position is being a speck of light in Brahman. That's nobody's constitutional position. Everybody's supposed to be engaging in active service to the Lord in their personal spiritual form, serving the Lord in his eternal personal transcendental form in the spiritual world. So this Jnanakanda is just going to lead to fall down eventually, right? That there's that verse that says 10:2:32 that says that these Jnanis, they imagine themselves to be liberated, but actually they can't stay there. They have to fall down again. So yeah, and ultimately their studies of Vedanta are useless because they don't come to know Krishna. That Krishna says that by all the Vedas I'm to be known. And that's the purpose of the Vedanta. So they're wasting their time in the same way that this Karma Kanda is useless. Jnana Kanda is also useless, because what's the point of studying Vedanta if you don't actually come to the conclusion of Vedanta, which is to know Krishna? So yeah, so let's read text 13:14. Shukadeva Goswami is going to point out the shortcomings here of Jnana Kanda.
To concentrate the mind, one must observe a life of celibacy and not fall down. One must undergo the austerity of voluntarily giving up sense enjoyment. One must then control the mind and senses, give charity, be truthful, clean, and non-violent, follow the regulative principles, and regularly chant the holy name of the Lord. Thus, a sober and faithful person who knows the religious principles is temporarily purified of all sins performed with his body, words, and mind. These sins are like the dried leaves of creepers beneath a bamboo tree, which may be burned by fire, although their roots remain to grow again at the first opportunity.
So it's the same problem, right? It's just, it doesn't uproot the root of the sinful desire that's in the heart. And the person is temporarily purified, but they just come back. So it's not really better than Karma Kanda. Now, this verse is a little bit confusing because the way that, let's see, if you look at the Sanskrit, tapasa brahmacharyena shamena cha damena cha tyagena satyaso chabhyam yamena niyamena va. So these are all the processes that the Jnanis follow. They do austerities, they have to be strictly celibate, control the mind and senses, that's shamena, damena. They give up all their material possessions, tyagena. They have to be truthful, clean, satyaso chabhyam, and strictly follow the yamas and niyamas, all the rules and regulations. The confusing part is that the way that Srila Prabhupada translates niyamena is chanting the holy name of the Lord. This is an example of the Srila Prabhupada elevator. That Prabhupada, he tries to bring everything up to bhakti, so that we don't miss the point. The main point is we have to chant the holy name of the Lord. But the thing is that here, Shukadeva Goswami is describing the process of gyan. So the Jnanis, if they were regularly chanting the holy name of the Lord, then they wouldn't be temporarily purified; they would be permanently purified. So that's why this is confusing. Srila Prabhupada's intention is to put the emphasis on the holy name of the Lord, because that's what this chapter is. That's what he knows. That's what the goal of this chapter is. But just in this verse, it causes confusion because, yeah. So, yeah. So this is the pitfall of Jnana Kanda, is that it only temporarily purifies one of all sins. Yeah. So what Shukadeva Goswami is talking about is the yamas and niyamas of jnana. The process of jnana, because each the different yoga systems, they all have their different yamas and niyamas, their different do's and don'ts. So like Ashtanga Yoga has its yamas and niyamas, according to Patanjali Yoga, and then Gyan has yamas and niyamas. Bhakti also has yamas and niyamas, right? We have our 4 regulative principles, which we don't, our 4 don'ts, no meeting, no illicit sex, like that. And then we have our thing that we do. Our niyama is chanting the holy name of the Lord, but that's not a niyama for the Gyanis. Okay. So imagine you do that. If you do that your whole life, your sins will be temporarily purified. And maybe you even get liberated and go to Brahman. But then you have to come back down to the material world because you can't stay there forever. And then when you come back down to the material world, then those material propensities also come back, because that's what happens if anybody is in the material world and is not a devotee. They have these material propensities. So it's just useless. Okay, so what's the permanent solution? Let's read this. We can read the Sanskrit for text 15. This is a very important verse, which probably is one of your memorization verses. Kechit kevalaya bhaktya vasudeva parayana agam dunvanti kartsnyena niharam eva bhaskara. So Prabhupada translates, only a rare person who has adopted complete unalloyed devotional service to Krishna can uproot the weeds of sinful actions with no possibility that they will revive. He can do this simply by discharging devotional service, just as the sun can immediately dissipate fog by its rays. So this is the answer. After the first 2 tests, finally now Shukadeva Goswami is giving the answer. Let's have someone read the first 2 paragraphs of the purport, please.
In the previous verse, Shukdev Goswami gave the example that the dried leaves of creepers beneath a bamboo tree may be completely burned to ashes by a fire, although the creepers may sprout again because the root is still in the ground. Similarly, because the root of sinful desire is not destroyed in the heart of a person who is cultivating knowledge, but who has no taste for devotional service, there is possibility that his sinful desires will reappear. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-4, Shreyaha Shritam Bhaktim Udasya Te Vibho Klasyanti Ye Kevala Bodh Labdhaye. Speculators who undergo great labor to gain a meticulous understanding of the material world by distinguishing between sinful and pious activities, but who are not situated in devotional service, are prone to material activities. They may fall down and become implicated in fruitive activities. If one becomes attached to the devotional service, however, his desires for material enjoyment are automatically vanquished without separate endeavor. Bhaktihi preshanubhavo viraktir anyatra cha. If one is advanced in Krishna consciousness, material activities, both sinful and pious, automatically become distasteful to him. This is the test of Krishna consciousness. Both pious and impious activities are actually due to ignorance, because a living entity, as an eternal servant of Krishna, has no need to act for his personal sense gratification. Therefore, as soon as one is reclaimed to the platform of devotional service, he relinquishes his attachment for pious and impious activities and is entrusted only in what will satisfy Krishna. This process of bhakti, devotional service to Krishna, Vasudeva Parayana, relieves one from the reactions of all activities. Shall I continue, Mataji?
Well, let me just comment a couple of things here. So yeah, this is really important, that he's talking about ignorance, that ignorance basically means ignoring Krishna, right? Ignorance, that ignorance means ignoring Krishna. So anything that's done without Krishna consciousness is an activity in ignorance. And anything done in ignorance is going to degrade us. So even if it's a so-called pious activity, but it's not done in connection with Krishna, it's not going to help us. And that's why Prabhupada says that both pious and impious activities are actually due to ignorance. So, yeah, sometimes we hear that in the material, Prabhupada would say that in the material world, good and bad are all bad. And in spiritual life, in Krishna consciousness, for devotees actually Krishna conscious, good and bad are all good. So there's no duality. See, this is where we finish with duality. Because in the Krishna conscious platform, like we were saying, even the suffering in our lives, that they're all gifts from Krishna. They're all helping us to purify, to advance, to become detached. Nothing, there's no bad. It's all good. In the material world, also, everything is just all bad. But also, that's also, in the sense, it's good because the suffering is good. But the only bad thing is forgetfulness of Krishna. So it's just very clear cut. In forgetfulness of Krishna, everything is just bad. Nothing is actually helping us. And if we're in Krishna consciousness, everything is good. Everything is helping us. So this makes life, then our only duty is to remember Krishna. All we have to do is remember Krishna. That makes our life very simple. As if remembering Krishna was easy. But ultimately, that's all we have to do. And Krishna takes care of everything else. Right? That's the only thing that Krishna asks. Man mana bhava mad bhakto. Just think of me. Always think of me. And whatever, and then he'll just inspire us. If we're thinking of Krishna, Krishna will just direct us. And he'll inspire us. It'll become very clear what we have to do. And he'll also give us the empowerment to do it. He'll give us the devotee association to support us so that we can do it. He'll just make everything happen. He'll just arrange everything perfectly so that all the other things in life just get done. You know, he wants to provide for us. He wants to maintain us. He wants to protect us. We just don't let him. We want to do it ourselves. He's like, oh, you want to do it yourself? Go do it yourself and fail until you realize that the only one who can do that is me. And then you surrender to me. So, yeah, we just stay knocking our head against a brick wall until we turn around and face Krishna. And let Krishna just hold us in his embrace and take care of everything for us. And we just think of him. And so, yeah, thinking of Krishna, we have this, ignorance means ignoring Krishna. And, you know, knowledge means remembering Krishna, means knowing Krishna. So that's why Prabhupada ends this paragraph saying that as soon as one comes to the platform of devotional service, he relinquishes his attachment for pious and impious activities. Why? Because you know that they're all bad. You know that even those pious activities are useless. So you just forget about it. I don't care about that. I'm not interested. I'm interested in only what will satisfy Krishna, because that's the good thing. That's the thing that's going to help me. Okay, yes, Ganga Shakti has her hand up there.
Mataji, when you explained that, it's our only duty is to remember Krishna, it's very easy to do it sporadically once in a while. But is there like a way in which we can move towards being consistent in this kind of remembrance? Because my experience is that it happens, the graph of remembering Krishna goes like this, at least in my life. But whenever I hear this, it's so simple that, like Prabhupada also says, bhakti is so simple that you miss it. It's like that. Yeah. So is there a way in which we can train our mind that we become more consistent in this remembrance?
Yeah, in the purport to Nectar of Instruction, text 8, that verse where Rupa Goswami is giving the essence of all advice, 24 hours hearing, chanting, remembering Krishna. So at the end of that purport, Srila Prabhupada, he gives us Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's explanation. And in that explanation, there's different stages of Krishna Smaranam. He goes through a very scientific presentation of how to remember Krishna, the stages of progressive remembrance of Krishna. And so there he talks about how in the beginning, it's very sporadic, like you said. if we're hearing about Krishna, then we'll remember Krishna. As soon as someone is not, directly talking about Krishna, we forget about him. So you'll be in the Bhagavatam class, somebody will sing some beautiful pastime of Krishna. Oh, Krishna is so nice, Krishna is so wonderful. And then you walk out of the class, immediately forget, and just go on with your mundane life. So that's mundane thoughts. So that's the beginning stage. That's a stage. That's nice. That's called Shravana Dasha, the stage of hearing, remembering by hearing. And then gradually he progresses from there. I won't go into too much detail because of time, but you can read that. And but he explains how gradually, the mind becomes more, we remember Krishna a little more often. We'll start remembering Krishna even on our own. Things will be like, there'll be udipanas, like we'll see something and, oh, Krishna, we'll see a certain color. Oh, that's Krishna's color. Or we'll see, something, and it'll remind us of Krishna. And then sometimes even then it comes to the point where even not seeing Krishna, we'll just feel Krishna's presence. So we'll see, oh, something happened in my life, that was Krishna. And then we'll be feeling gratitude to Krishna, or we'll pray to Krishna. There'll be a problem, we'll take shelter of Krishna. And then the gaps between, you're talking about the graph, there'll be a point and then it'll go down. So the going down points will be less down. They'll be just like a little dip. And then also the gaps of where we're forgetting Krishna will become smaller, and the times of remembering Krishna will become bigger. And then before you know it, it'll become a steady line. Or, well, not a steady line, it'll be an increasing line. Always remembering Krishna more and more, with more intensity, with more feeling, with more depth, with more absorption, until we gradually get to the point of just like total samadhi, complete absorption in Krishna all the time and everything we do. So it's a gradual process. But the fact that you're even sporadically remembering Krishna is already a huge achievement, because so many lifetimes we completely forgot Krishna. So anytime that you remember Krishna at all, just give yourself a good pat on the back. Well done. You're doing great. We need to actually give ourselves some encouragement instead of dwelling on, oh, I forgot Krishna so long. Just be like, actually, I remembered Krishna for a few moments today. When you go to bed at night and you lie in your bed, think of all the times that you remembered Krishna during the day. And otherwise, if you think of all the times you forgot Krishna, you just become depressed. But I remembered Krishna in this time and that time, and for a few minutes during my japa, and a little bit during class, and when this happened and when that happened. And so just add up all the times that we remember Krishna, and count them. Just keep them as like little treasures. Keep a little treasure chest in your heart, and keep those jewels and keep them safe there, and add them up. When the treasure chest is full, then we buy our ticket back to Godhead. All right. Okay, so let's go on. We're going to, let's see, my goodness. All right, let's, this is a long purport here to text 15. Later on in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is talking about different kinds of sins. He mentions the patikas, the mahapatikas, and the atipatikas. So there are all these different kinds of sins. Some are small, some are great. So the mahapatikas are the great sins, the things like killing a brahmana, or there's actually, there are five mahapatikas. So killing a brahmana, stealing gold, drinking wine, having sex with the wife of one's guru, and the fifth is encouraging any of the above, encouraging anybody to do those things. So even if you don't do them yourself, if you pay someone to kill a Brahmin, like those people who wanted to hire some gundas to kill Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, or you encourage someone to drink wine, then that's Mahapatika. Then the Atipatikas, Ati means extremely bad, extremely sinful. So the Atipatikas are things like to sexually abuse a child, to commit abortion, to kill a pregnant woman, to have sex with one's mother or daughter. Those are the really bad, just like unthinkable things, the atipatikas. And for those are very, very heavy sinful reactions. But Srila Prabhupada is saying that devotional service is so strong that it removes, it clears away the reactions to all these three, even the atipatikas. And so it clears out all types of sin. And it also clears out all stages of sinful reaction. Right? There's that verse from the Padma Purana that you learned in Nectar Devotion. Aprarabdha phalam papam kutam bijam phalam mukam kramenaiva praliyeta Vishnu bhakti ratatmanam. That by attachment to Lord Vishnu with devotion, that's devotional service, then kramenaiva, step by step, all these reactions to sin, the manifest reactions, the unmanifested reactions, the different stages of unmanifested reactions, they're all gone. And that happens in the beginning of devotional service. That happens in sadhana bhakti. You don't even have to be like a, very, very advanced devotee. Even in sadhana bhakti, these are gone. The first two things are kleshagni, and subhada. So we get free from material miseries, means we get free from all of our karma. And then there's no more suffering. That's what I was saying. For a devotee, there's no suffering. Because in the very beginning of devotional service, all the causes of suffering are gone. So then anything that happens is just, Krishna's mercy. Right? It may look like Lord Brahma says, Tatenu kampam susamikshama. It looks like suffering. It resembles karmic reactions, but a devotee should understand that it's not. It's nothing to do with karma. It's like a curative treatment administered by the personal hand of the Lord, just to cure us from our material disease, our material, to break us from to get us to let go of our material attachments. And subhada, life becomes auspicious. Everything's auspicious because everything is just personally arranged by Krishna. Yeah. And Prabhupada mentions Jiva Goswami's commentary, that Jiva Goswami goes through these different stages of devotional service. And he says that the lowest stage of devotional service is called abhasa rupa. It's just a slight glimpse, just abhas, like, we're going to hear later about nam abhas. Just a slight glimpse, just a dim reflection of the holy name. So also there's a bhakti abhas rupa, the form, the abhas form of devotional service, which is just a slight glimpse of devotional service. But Jiva Goswami is saying that even by that slight glimpse, even by abhasa rupa bhakti, all sinful reactions are vanquished. All sinful desires even are totally uprooted. All these, even the ati papakas, even the aprarabdha karmas, they're all just gone. So this is the glories of bhakti, which are Shukadeva Goswami saying in this verse. Okay, so let's go to text 16 now. Someone please read.
My dear king, if a sinful person engages in the service of a bona fide devotee of the Lord, and thus learns how to dedicate his life unto the lotus feet of Krishna, he can be completely purified. One cannot be purified merely by undergoing austerity, penance, brahmacharya, and the other methods of atonement I have previously described.
Yeah, so he's referring back to those verses, text 13, 14, where he was saying tapasa brahmacharyena and all that. He's saying that, yeah, I said that, but actually it doesn't work. That one cannot actually be purified by tapasa brahmacharyena and shamena cha damena cha. So only by devotional service. And I wanted to share with you here from Bhagavad Gita. That one. Oh yeah. So Bhagavad Gita at the end of the 11th chapter, Krishna says the same thing, because he just showed the universal form to Arjuna, and then he showed the four-arm form, and now he's back showing his two-arm form again. And he says to Arjuna that in text 53, the form you're seeing with your transcendental eyes cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas. nor by undergoing serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship. It is not by these means that one can see me as I am. So Krishna is also, he's eliminating all these other processes. And then in text 54, he says, my dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. So, yeah, forget about these processes, just devotional service. That's why Krishna says, Sarva Dharmam Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Braja. Just forget about all these other so-called, pious religious activities, all the rituals, all the karma kanda, the jnana kanda. It's all useless. Just abandon it, give it up totally, and surrender to me, and just serve me and focus on me with undivided devotional service. That's the only thing that's really going to help you. And this text 16 here that we just read focuses on serving a devotee, that Tat Purusha, that person. So which person? One who is Krishna Arpita Prana. That's what it says in the Sanskrit. Krishna Arpita Prana, one who's dedicated their life, their very life, their life breath, their prana is Krishna Arpita, is dedicated to Krishna, right? Like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Tat Karusva Mad Arpanam, the offering. That's the Yat Karosi Yadashnasi Yad Jehosi Dasi Yat Tapasyasi Kontayat Tat Karusva Mad Arpanam. So that word Arpanam means to offer, that you offer everything that you do, everything that you eat, every charity that you want to give, just offer it to me. So Krishna Arpita Prana means you offer your life also to Krishna. So that person who's Krishna Arpita Prana, who's dedicated their life to Krishna, Tat Purusha, that person is the one that you should serve. So even if a sinful person engages in the service of a bona fide devotee, that kind of devotee, and learns from that devotee who's dedicated their life, how we can dedicate our life to the lotus feet of Krishna, then we can become completely purified. No other method's going to work. And this is why, Prabhupada mentions here in the purport that this is why blaspheming a devotee is so offensive. Because, Narottam Das Thakur says, Chadiya Vaishnava Seva, Nishtara Payechikeva. Without serving a Vaishnava, no one can be delivered from the clutches of Maya. So we're so dependent on devotees to deliver us. There's just no way that we can get out of this material entanglement unless we serve a Vaishnava. So to blaspheme a Vaishnava is so bad because they are only means of deliverance. So Vaishnava Aparad is the worst form of ungratefulness. It's that person who's saving me, and I'm going to criticize them. Oh my, it's just like, it's so wrong. And Krishna sees it as so bad because his devotees are so dear to him. So, Ganga Shakti, is that your hand up for now?
Yes, Mataji, I wanted to ask a question.
Yes.
So in the translation, it is said that austerity, penance, brahmacharya, all are obviously below or inferior to developing surrender to the Lord, unto the lotus feet of the Lord. But in general, austerity, penance, and brahmacharya are taken as the means to, or the way to develop surrender to the Lord, thinking that if we are not austere, we do not perform some penances, in the sense we do not abstain from certain things, if we do not follow a life of abstinence, if we are not chaste, then we obviously cannot be surrendered to the Lord. So is that the right understanding? And especially when we preach to teenagers or younger people, because the way the world has changed in the last decade, even in countries like India, where Vedic system has been prevalent in some way or the other, even now, even here we feel the change in the lifestyles. And for children to accept austerity, penance, and brahmacharya as the ways to develop surrender to the lotus feet of the Lord is very difficult. So how do we go about it?
Right. So, I mean, Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita that austerity, penance, charity, these are not to be given up, but because they purify even great souls. So it's not that we don't perform austerities, or we don't, that, you know, young men don't become brahmacharis. But the thing is that we don't, that's not the process. You know, we're not thinking that by observing a lifelong celibacy and performing austerities that I'm going to be delivered, that's my process. The process is bhakti. And then we just accept whatever is favorable for bhakti and reject whatever is unfavorable for bhakti. So yeah, there are certain austerities which are very favorable for bhakti, so we embrace those austerities, right? Like fasting on Ekadasi, like waking up early in the morning, going to Mangalarti, certain austerities that we do. And then brahmacharya, that's favorable for bhakti. In the beginning, it may not be favorable throughout one's life, right? It may be more favorable for someone to get married and raise Krishna conscious children and get purified in Grihastha ashram. So, you know, we're not followers of you know, it's not that I'm dedicating someone, we're not encouraging someone to dedicate their life to brahmacharya. You dedicate your life to Krishna. And then whatever is favorable for your service to Krishna, you just accept. So yeah, the thing is that these principles tend to also be favorable for Krishna consciousness, but we have to be careful in our application, and we have to be careful not to lose our focus on Krishna. Because sometimes, you know, you see that some fanatical brahmacharis, they're like, yeah, brahmachari, you know, and it's their religion is brahmachari. You know, their dedication is to the brahmachari vows more than it is to Krishna. And so, you know, they'll become proud of their, you know, saffron, and they'll criticize grihastas and look down on the grihastas and make all kinds of Vaishnava aparad, which is unfavorable for devotional service. So it's counterproductive. Like, that's not, so brahmachari is not the process is bhakti. And if brahmachari is favorable, then great, be a brahmachari. But if it leads you to, if it's artificial, if you're, you know, repressing yourself, if you're like, you know, wearing saffron, but behind the scenes thinking and even doing things that are not in accordance with brahmachari ashram, and simultaneously envious of the householders and criticizing them because they have what you want, but you can't have because you're too attached to your brahmachari status, then it's not favorable at all, right? It's a deviation. It's just karma kanda. Okay. Yeah. So we have to present these things in ways that are favorable. And yeah, it's good for young people to practice these things in Krishna consciousness, but the emphasis has to be on the Krishna consciousness, has to be on Krishna. One of the faults that we had in training children is that, you know, we force them to do austerities, and it's more about the austerity and less about Krishna. But if we make Krishna, you know, in teaching children and youth, if we just give them Krishna, you know, Krishna is so wonderful, Krishna is so attractive, Krishna is so fun, you know, that they're going to just want to do things that please Krishna. And then all you need to do is tell them that Krishna is very happy when you go to Mangalarti, and first thing you do is wake up in the morning and rush to the temple to see him. You know, he's going to be happy with you. Then I want to go to Mangalarti. Or Krishna really likes it. Like Ekadashi is a special day where he wants you to minimize your material demands and focus more on him. You know, like just like on your birthday, you want all your friends to come over and, you know, eat with you and play with you and give you presents. So Ekadashi is like, you know, the day where it's Krishna's day. You know, you want to do everything to please Krishna. You want to go to his place and bring him some presents and celebrate him and sing songs for him. And, you know, that's how, so like that, you just make it about Krishna. And then they'll develop attachment to Krishna, and they'll feel Krishna's reciprocation, and they'll want to do those things for Krishna. And that's all. Okay. We have to go on. I don't know how we're going to finish this chapter, but we'll try. Okay, so let's go to text 17.
The path followed by
the pure devotees who are well behaved and fully endowed with the best qualifications is certainly the most auspicious path in this material world. It is free from fear and it is authorized by the Shastras.
Yeah, so Prabhupada makes the point in the purport that one should not think that the person who takes to bhakti is one who, he's basically saying that, don't worry if something's missing. That bhakti is, don't think that bhakti is just another ritual. And that it's one thing that we have to do, and then there are other rituals that we have to do. So especially for, I'm assuming most of you grew up in Hindu families. So, in Hindu culture, religion, there's so many rituals, right? You probably grew up doing like a lot of different rituals. So the thing is that these rituals are not going to purify the heart unless they're dovetailed in bhakti. So on the one hand, those things can be done, like Shraddha ceremony and things like that. Devotees always ask, should we do Shraddha ceremony or should we not do Shraddha ceremony? Thing is that just the Shraddha ceremony itself is not going to purify the heart. But if you find a way to connect it to Krishna, dovetail it to Krishna, offer the food to Vishnu, offer prasad to the ancestors, do kirtan as part of the Shraddha ceremony, dovetail it in bhakti, then it will be helpful for everyone, for yourself, for your family, for your ancestors. So on the one hand, a devotee is free from all obligations, but on the other hand, these things can also be done as long as but they have to be connected to Krishna. Everything has to be connected to Krishna. Otherwise, it will get karma for those things and it will be degrading. Okay, text. Let's go ahead and read 18 and 19.
My dear king, as a pot containing liquor cannot be purified, even if washed in the waters of many rivers, non-devotees cannot be purified by process of atonement, even if they perform them very well. Text 19. Although not having fully realized Krishna, persons who have even once surrendered completely unto his lotus feet and who have become attracted to his name, form, qualities, and pastimes are completely freed of all sinful reactions, for they have thus accepted the true method of atonement. Even in dreams, such surrendered souls do not see Yamaraj or his order carriers who are equipped with ropes to bind the sinful.
Thank you. Yeah, so these other rituals, it's like trying to clean a pot of liquor. It never becomes pure. You just have to throw it away. So in the same way, just throw away these karma kanda processes. And bhakti is different. It just, from the very beginning, it purifies everything. So even if you do karma kanda rituals, other processes of atonement very well, still you're not going to get the result. Whereas bhakti, even if you do it, from the very beginning, even while even if it's full of faults, it still is purifying. And this text 9 is very nice. It says, Sakrin mana Krishna padara vindayor, that just once, even if just once you manage to put your mind on Krishna's lotus feet, that tadguna ragi, that having attained attachment to his qualities, his gunas, the gunas of that person, we're talking about Krishna, you get a little bit of rag, a little bit of attachment to those qualities. Then such people, chirna niskrita, that they've practiced the true atonement, that this is the true atonement. So the word niveshita means to fix. It means to turn to place upon. So what is being fixed is the mind. Mana Krishna, Padara Vindayo, that the mind has to be fixed on Krishna. And that will purify us. So even if, as devotees, sometimes we might have a sinful thought. We think of doing something that we know is wrong, but we just need to fix our mind on Krishna. The sinful thought comes up, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, just fix the mind on Krishna. And that will purify us and keep us safe. See, that's the fault. That's the problem that Ajamil had, is that he had that thought. He had the attraction to the prostitute and he didn't call out to Krishna. He wasn't like, oh, Krishna, Krishna. He didn't just close his eyes and chant Hare Krishna and walk away. So we need to fix our mind on Krishna. And the way Srila Prabhupada translates that verse, Niveshitam, in this verse, in here is Niveshitam is completely surrendered. So he bases this translation on Bhagavad Gita 1866. Because what does it mean to surrender? It means it means to fix one's minds on Krishna. So we need to surrender our minds and surrender our consciousness, and from that everything else will follow. Yeah, and then for such people, then Nate Yaman, they don't see Yamaraj, nor do they see Pashabritas, his servants who are carrying the ropes, nor Tatpatan, not even his ministers, his order carriers, Swapne api, even in dreams. So we don't have to worry about these things. And now that he's brought this up, you can imagine, sometimes you're speaking and you'll make a statement and it'll remind you of a story. So he's saying that they won't see the servants of Yamaraj, not even in dreams. And then he's thinking, yeah, like a Jamil. He saw the servants of Yamaraj. So now he's going to narrate the story. Okay, so let's go to text 20. Someone please read.
In this regard, learned scholars and saintly persons describe a very old historical incident involving a discussion between the order carriers of Lord Vishnu and those of Yamaraj. Please hear of this from me.
So yeah, Itihasam Puratanam. That this was very old. Itihasam. Iti means thus, and hasam means happened. So Itihasam literally means thus it happened. That's the Sanskrit word for history. And Srila Prabhupada quotes that it's significant that he comments that it's significant that Shukadev Goswami is quoting the Puranas here, because some Vedic scholars reject the Puranas. They reject most or all, or at least most of the Smritis, and they accept only the Shrutis. They consider that the Smritis, like the Puranas, are not so authoritative, or that they're even mythological. But Rupa Goswami says that this verse, that devotional service that ignores the Vedic literature like the Puranas is just a disturbance in society. So we have to, they're actually not useless, they're very valuable, they're important, they're necessary. And so this important is, this story that Shukadeva Goswami is going to tell is something that we need to pay attention to. And the very fact that Shukadeva Goswami is citing this story from the Puranas is evidence that Puranas are important to study. Okay, let's go to text 21.
In the city known as Kanaya Kubja, there was a Brahmin named Ajami who married a prostitute maidservant and lost all his Brahminical qualities because of the association of that low-class woman.
Yeah, so Prabhupada talks about the danger of illicit connection with women. Yeah, throughout the Bhagavatam, wherever it mentions about illicit connection with women, or how, association with women is degrading or something, there's one place where Srila Prabhupada says that for men, women means women, and for women, women means men. So it means he's talking about the opposite sex here. So this applies to everyone. So whoever is women for you, this applies. So for women, illicit connection with men also makes one lose all one's Brahminical or devotional qualities. So we shouldn't have illicit connection with anyone. We need to have proper relationships with devotees. So yeah, and he says that because Ajamil had begun his process of bhakti yoga, then we're going to see how he was protected, and specifically the glories of the holy name. Okay, we'll get to that. Let's go on to text 22.
This fallen Brahmin Ajamil gave trouble to others by arresting them, by cheating them in gambling, or by directly plundering them. This was the way he earned his livelihood and maintained his wife and children.
All right, yeah, so Prabhupada's pointing out here that that if one engages in illicit sex, then all the other sinful activities follow. And that's what happened with the Jamil. First, there was this illicit sexual connection, and then after came cheating, gambling, plundering, and so forth. So, Srila Prabhupada says that sexual restraint is difficult, but it's possible through surrender to Krishna. And yeah, the same thing. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that controlling the mind is difficult, but it's possible through practice and detachment. So their devotional life is not easy. It's difficult. Controlling our senses, controlling our mind. These things are not easy, but they're possible. They're possible if we're determined and we take shelter of Krishna and keep practicing, and we need to have a little detachment. But of course, detachment comes naturally. It's one of the byproducts of devotional service. So the solution to everything here is devotional service. That's going to again and again and again throughout this chapter. And devotional service is the solution for every single problem. Surrender to Krishna, chanting the holy name. It's going to help us through everything in our lives. We just need to do it. But unfortunately, Ajamil did not do it. He gave up his practice. So let's read text 23. Or you can go on and read, go ahead and read 23 and 24.
My dear king,
My
Or
dear
go
king,
read all the way to 26, including 26.
My dear king, while he thus spent his time in abominable sinful activities to maintain his family of many sons, 88 years of his life passed by. Thus, that old man Ajamil had 10 sons, of whom the youngest was a baby named Narayana. Since Narayan was the youngest of all the sons, he was naturally very dear to both his father and his mother. Because of the child's broken language and awkward movements, old Ajamil was very much attached to him. He always took care of the child and enjoyed the child's activities. When Ajamil chewed food and ate it, he called the child to chew and eat. And when he drank, he called the child to drink also. Always engaged in taking care of the child and calling his name Narayana. Ajamil could not understand that his own time was now exhausted and that death was upon him.
All right, thank you. So here we see the truth of what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita when he says, Neha bikrama nashosti pratyavayo nividyate swapamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayad. That just a little bit of advancement in bhakti can save one from the greatest danger, and that spiritual advancement in devotional service is never lost. So that little bit of advancement that Ajamil had made previously in his youth, Krishna reciprocated with that by inspiring him to name his son Narayan. And because of that, he was always chanting Narayan. And because he wasn't intending to counteract his sins by his chanting, he wasn't committing any offenses. He was just chanting. He was just saying Narayan, Narayan, Narayan this, Narayan that. And so he was protected. And it's a nice point that Prabhupada makes at the end of text 26 purport. He says that Ajamil was unknowingly chanting the name of Narayan, and the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so transcendently powerful that his chanting was being counted and recorded. So I thought that was really nice. It's nice for us to know that when we're chanting our japa, we're counting our beads and we're moving the counting beads down. But we're not the only ones who are counting our chanting. It's also being counted and recorded by someone else. Someone up there that we can't see is counting our japa along with us, and how many names we say. Even when we're not counting them, they're counting, right? Like maybe you're just cooking and singing Hare Krishna, you're driving to work and you're chanting you're just singing a bhajan or something. That's also being counted. So Krishna has a bigger count even than we have, because we're only counting the japa. He's counting everything. So that's nice to know. Okay, let's go to text 27.
When the time of death arrived for the foolish Ajamil, began thinking exclusively of his son Narayan.
All right, so Prabhupada says in the purport here that although contaminated, Ajamil was calling for his son, by concentrating his mind on the holy name of Narayan, he remembered the Narayan he had very faithfully worshipped in his youth. So sometimes we think that just by saying the name Narayan, that he was, that he was delivered, or that he was saved. But Prabhupada comments that it wasn't just like a total unconscious, absent-minded chanting of the holy name Narayan, but it actually evoked a remembrance of Narayan. So at the time of death, he wasn't just chanting Narayan mindlessly, he was also remembering Narayan with some slight tinge of devotion from remembering his early life. And the Acharyas also confirm this. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, Sridhar Swami says that he was elevated to the platform of bhakti. So he wasn't understanding how chanting the name Narayan was elevating him, and he wasn't doing it intentionally to elevate himself the way we do when we chant. We're trying to advance spiritually, but it was without his knowledge, it was elevating him in bhakti. And then Veera Raghava Acharya says that although at the time of death he was chanting the name of his son, still he concentrated his mind on the holy name of Narayan. And that Vijaya Dwaj Tirtha says that he factually remembered Narayan at the time of his death. So yeah, Ante Narayana Smriti, he was able to actually fulfill that goal, that it's mentioned previously in the Bhagavatam that the best thing that you can do, the most important thing to do in your life is to remember Narayan at the time of death. And Ajamil did that. So he was saved. So yeah. Sometimes in Krishna consciousness, we give an overemphasis on agyata sukriti, like in our preaching, we just try to kind of we try to make people Krishna consciousness without their knowing by slipping them prasadam and not telling them that it's prasadam, or by just chanting Hare Krishna in their ear, people who don't know what we're talking about and have no idea what we're saying. Of course, in India, people have a little more of a clue, right? If you're chanting Hare Krishna, they know that they know who Krishna is. In the West, it's different. We just chant Hare Krishna, like, what are they even saying? So, so it's not only, we don't go back to Godhead by agyata sukriti. A person has to everyone has to make a conscious, willful decision that, I want to get out of my material life. I want to go to the spiritual world. I want to connect with the Lord in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, one devotee who's giving class, he was joking about this. He made this joke that there's no one hiding behind a tree in Vaikuntha smoking cigarettes, thinking, how did I end up here? Oh, it must have been those devotees yelling Hare Krishna in my ear or something at the time of death. But they still attach to all their sinful habits. It's not like that. The consciousness has to be purified first. So of course, it'll help them. They'll take birth, an elevated birth, and maybe they'll get a chance to meet devotees again. And that's what happened. We see that with Ajamil, right? He didn't, even though he did remember Narayan, but he still had so many sinful desires. He didn't leave his body and go straight back to Godhead, but he got a second chance. And after his second chance, then he took it seriously. Then he made a conscious decision that I'm going to worship Krishna. I want to go to Vaikuntha. I want to see those beautiful Vishnu Dutas again. I want to give up all my material life. So, yeah, that's important to know. There's this verse from the Bhagavad Gita also where Krishna says that. It's 1728. He says, Ashradhaya hutam datam tapas taptam kritam chaya asad iti uchate parta nachatat pretya no iha. So he said, anything done as sacrifice, charity, or penance without faith in the Supreme is impermanent. It is asat, and it is useless both in this life and the next. So even if somebody's chanting the holy name, but they have no faith, there's no consciousness, they're inattentive, it's not going to take them back to Godhead. It's going to, they still have work to do. They still have to develop that faith and develop devotion themselves. Okay, let's read text 28 to 30.
Ajamil then saw 3 awkward persons with deformed bodily features, fierce, twisted faces, and hair standing erect on their bodies. With ropes in their hands, they had come to take him away to the abode of Yamraj. When he saw them, he was extremely bewildered, and because of attachment to his child, who was playing a short distance away, Ajamil began to call him loudly by his name. Thus, with tears in his eyes, he somehow or other chanted the holy name of Narayan. Text 30. My dear king, the order carriers of Vishnu, the Vishnu Dutas, immediately arrived when they heard the holy name of their master from the mouth of the dying Ajamil, who had certainly chanted without offense because he had chanted in complete anxiety.
So has anyone here ever been in complete anxiety? I know I have. Oh, and how is your chanting at that time? Some of the best chanting, right? That's the best chanting when you're in complete anxiety. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Really calling out to Krishna. That's when we get that mood of child calling for mother, right? Total helplessness. I am overwhelmed. I can't do it. I need your help, Krishna. So that's Shukadeva Goswami saying that Ajamil certainly chanted without offense because he had chanted in complete anxiety. So like I was saying, the problems in life are good. Anxiety is a good thing. If Ajamil wasn't in anxiety, he wouldn't have chanted. He might not have chanted, but he chanted, and he chanted without offense. So that's why in this material world is designed to be a place of anxiety, right? Vaikuntha means without anxiety. So in spiritual world, they don't need anxiety because everybody is just spontaneously, naturally, always thinking of Krishna. But in the material world, there needs to be some kunta. There needs to be some anxiety to force us to take shelter of Krishna, to just bring us to our knees and make us fold our hands and pray. And so it's good. This world is full of trouble by design. And that design is very favorable for us. Okay, text. Let's see. Let's read 31 to 36.
The order carriers of Yes, Maji, please read.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. The order carriers of Yamaraja were snatching the soul from the core of the heart of Ajamil, the husband of the prostitute, but with resounding voices, the messengers of Lord Vishnu, the Vishnu Dutas, forbade them to do so. When the
Just
order
let me say,
carriers of Yamaraja...
I'll just say something quickly here. I just thought that Prabhupada talks about how the Vishnu Dutas are stronger than the Yamadutas. So it's just reassuring to know that the messengers of Lord Vishnu are more powerful than even Yamaraj himself, that a devotee is in the strongest position. So it's nice to know, right? That the demons aren't stronger than the demigods, that the Yamaraj is not his will or his direction is not more powerful than that of the Vishnu Dutas. So the devotees are always going to win. Okay, go ahead, please.
When the order carriers of Yamaraj, the son of the sun god, were thus forbidden, they replied, "Who are you, sirs?" They have the audacity to challenge the jurisdiction of Yamaraj. "Dear sirs, whose servants are you? Where have you come from? And why are you forbidding us to touch the body of Ajamala? Are you demigods from the heavenly planets? Are you sub-demigods, or are you the best? Are you the best of devotees?" The other carriers of Yamaraj said, "Your eyes are just like the petals of lotus flowers, dressed in yellow silken garments, decorated with garlands of lotuses, and wearing very attractive helmets on your heads and earrings on your ears. You all appear fresh and youthful. Your your four long arms are decorated with bows and quivers of arrows, and with swords, clubs, conch shells, discs, and lotus flowers. Your effulgence has dissipated the darkness of this place with extraordinary illumination. Now, sirs, why are you obstructing us?"
Thank you. Yeah, so the Yamadutas were very surprised. So their first thing is, "Hey, Yuyam, who are all of you? Like, what is going on here? This never happened. We do this every day. All the sinful souls, we go with our ropes, we pull them back to Yamaraj, they get punished. In all of my career, lifelong career here working for Yamaraj, this has never happened. This is an unprecedented situation." So they're frustrated, they're confused, they're a little angry, but they see how the Vishnu Dutas are so beautiful, so effulgent, so wonderful. You know, they're taking the trouble here to they're describing the beauty of their transcendental forms. And so because of that, they're at the same time as being angry and frustrated, they're also very awe-inspired. You know, they're like, so when they're speaking, they're not speaking angrily. They're speaking politely and respectfully, because they can understand that, wow, something very great and wonderful is going on here, and we're a little upset about it, but at the same time, wow, you know, they're overwhelmed by the beauty of these Vishnu Dutas. And I mean, ultimately, the Yamadutas are not bad guys. They're also, Yamaraj is a devotee. He's a Mahajana. He's Vidura. So his servants are also not bad guys. But yeah, I had a thought here when I was reading this about the Yamadutas that see the Yamadutas are probably people in their previous life who, you know, they're good people who get upset about people who sinful people. So, you know, like when we see somebody doing something wrong, when we see someone hurting someone else, someone abusing someone else, someone committing some kind of a crime, our sense of justice comes in, and we think that person should be punished. They need to be punished. Or especially if somebody hurt me, you know, somebody did something, wronged me in some very bad way, we think, oh, I'm just waiting, let's see what's going to happen to them now, you know, like they're going to get their just desserts, they're going to suffer their karma, like that. So I'm thinking that because the Yamadutas are, they're serving a devotee, so they must have some bhakti, they must have some devotion, but at the same time they have this, they really so my thought was that, it's a little speculation here, but you might find it interesting, you might find it instructive even, is that devotees who have this tendency to like to see sinful people suffer due to their bad karma, they might become Yamadutas in the next life. You know, so if you're one of those people that, you know, I remember when I used to go out on book distribution and somebody would be rude to me, I would have this thought like, I really hope that, you know, you hurt yourself today or something, you know, because of how you just spoke to me. Or, you're going to get some really bad karma for that. Ha, ha, ha. You're going to suffer somehow in the future. Or, something. Sometimes you stop someone they're eating, you're going to choke on your food now that you said that to me. Or, like you have you have this sense that they wronged me, now they need to suffer. And I'm going to be very happy seeing you suffer. So that kind of mentality is not a Vaishnav mentality, right? We are saying that devotee is para dukkha dukhi. A devotee doesn't like to see people suffer. Their only suffering is other people suffering. So if you're a devotee and you're thinking, you're looking forward to how somebody's going to suffer because of something wrong that they did, then that's not a devotional mentality. That's a mentality of Yamadutas. They're devotees, they're serving a great pure devotee. And their whole service is to make sure that people who did things wrong suffer. So, yeah. Make sure you don't have that mentality, because you probably don't want to be a Yamaduta in your next life. Rukmini.
Mataji, I just want to ask a question, the example, your personal example gave. So, Mataji, just like if someone offends a Vaishnava, so Vaishnava may not get offended, but the dust of the lotus feet of Vaishnava will not forgive that soul. So that person will definitely get bad result for that, because that knowingly, unknowingly, that person has committed Vaishnava Aparadh under the lotus feet of the Vaishnava. So anyways, that person is gonna have sin. Is it so?
Yeah, so we don't have to desire their suffering. The dust of the lotus feet will take care of it. Just leave it to the dust. We don't have to worry about it. In fact, you see how, like with Ambarish Maharaj, when Durvasa Muni was so horrible to him, he was even trying to kill him, right? Just for drinking water. I mean, come on. And then Ambarish's attitude was like, I'm so sorry that I inconvenienced you, But and he didn't want Durvasa Muni to suffer, but the Sudarshan chakra of the Lord just took off. It was like, it was the Sudarshan chakra that was retaliating, not Ambarish Maharaj. And Ambarish didn't ask the Sudarshan chakra to do that. And then when Durvasa Muni came back to Ambarish to ask forgiveness, Ambarish's attitude was like, of course I forgive you. I never even took offense in the first place. And I'm so sorry that, you've been inconvenienced in this way. And, I'm sure it's not mentioned there, but I wouldn't doubt if Ambarish Maharaj, when he saw the Sudarshan chakra chasing poor Durvasa Muni, he was probably thinking just that. He was thinking, poor Durvasa Muni, please, Krishna, don't torture him too much. Let him, just make it okay for him. He was probably praying for his protection. So that's what a devotee does. But also, Krishna takes care, right? Krishna, he takes care of it. So we don't have to worry about it. We can just be a well-wisher and let Krishna do whatever he's going to do according to what he feels they deserve. Okay. Let's see. Let's read 37 to 39.
Shukadev Goswami continued, being thus addressed by the messengers of Yamaraj, the servants of Vasudev smiled and spoke the following words in voices as deep as the sound of rumbling clouds. Text 38. The blessed messengers of Lord Vishnu, the Vishnudutas, said, if you're actually servants of Yamaraj, you must explain to us the meaning of religious principles and the symptoms of irreligion. Text 39. What is the process of punishing others? Who are the actual candidates for punishment? Are all karmis engaged in fruitive activities punishable, or only some of them?
Thank you. So, yeah, it's nice. I like how it says that the Vishnudutas smiled. And they were like, they were just totally peaceful. And then they spoke very gently, they were just asking some questions. Well, you're asking who are we and why are we stopping you, but you also should know the religious principles. So please tell us, what is the process? What do you think? Why do you think that this man is deserving punishment like that? And Prabhupada mentions here that we have to know our philosophy. So in the same way, the Vishnu Dutas are expecting the Yamadutas to know their philosophy, to know the reasons why they do what they do. That, you can't just do this, because they could say, oh, we're the servants of Yamaraj. Yamaraj sent us here. That's it. We're just doing what we're told. We're just following orders. But the Vishnu Dutas are not accepting that. They're like, no, you need to have a good reason. You need to explain to us the reasons for your things. So Prabhupada says that in the same way, every devotee should know the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, the principles of Vaishnava Siddhanta, and also be very familiar with the mission of Srila Prabhupada, the mission of Lord Chaitanya, and we should be able to answer any question. So if anybody questions us, why are you chanting Hare Krishna? Why are you, worshiping the deity? Why are you doing whatever it is that you're doing in devotional activities? We should be able to answer, right? Like, why do you wear tilak? They ask all the same questions. Why do you shave your heads? Anyways, we should have all the answers to even the most superficial questions to the most deep questions of our Vaishnava Siddhanta. And it's our duty to know what we're doing. If we don't know what we're doing, we probably won't be doing it much longer either, because our own minds are going to question us. And if we can't give our minds a good answer, then the mind's going to say, well, then you're just a brainwashed fool. Go, enjoy life like everybody else. So, yeah, let me see here. Something that I wanted to look at. Yeah, that's basically what Prabhupada is saying there. Okay. Also, one point about the Vishnu Dutas smiling is that, when somebody's just ignorant, if they're not aware of why what they're doing is wrong, if they're not aware that what they're doing is wrong, there's no use getting angry with them. Like, say if somebody, this probably doesn't happen much in India, but it happens a lot in the West, that some person who, has never been to a temple before, they just walk right in with their shoes on. Because in the West, that's what you do. They use shoes in the house, they just always wear the shoes everywhere. So somebody, they knock on the door and they just open it and they just walk in with the shoes on. So there's no use getting angry and shouting at them and making them feel terrible. Just very politely smile, welcome them to the temple and say, oh, if you don't mind, could you please just leave your shoes outside the door? So it's in that mood that the Vishnu Dutas are speaking to the Yamadutas. It's like, Yamadutas, they're trying to do their service. They really don't know the situation. Let me try to guide them in a better understanding. I'll just start with asking them a few open-ended questions so that I can see where they're at before I start giving them a lecture, right? Because sometimes before we just start downloading our philosophy, it's good to get a sense of, well, what is this person's understanding already? What do they know about, what is their religious background? What is their philosophical leanings, so that we can deliver the message in an appropriate and relevant way. So that's what the Vishnu Dutas are doing. Okay. And then Prabhupada says that one who has the power to punish others should not punish everyone. So it's like, I was thinking that, in a lot of our temples in India, there's signs that say no cameras, no photographs, right? So the security will chastise someone who's just a random guest who's coming, or even a devotee, or rank and file devotee taking a picture. They'll tell them to put the camera away. But if, a sannyasi, a Prabhupada disciple is there taking a picture, they're not going to do that, right? They're told that these people are not to be, like if they're a sannyasi, a senior devotee, don't punish them for taking a picture, just let them take a picture. So we have to know who's punishable and who's not punishable. And then, of course, it's not that, someone can't use their sannyasa or Prabhupada disciple status to get away with anything, right? There are some things that even sannyasis are punishable for, right? Like child abuse or something like that. Even some of our sannyasis have been guilty of and have been punished for that. So we shouldn't think that, because they're a sannyasi, they can do anything. And but things need to be dealt with. But there are some things that are permissible and other things. So we need to know who's punishable, who's not punishable, and for what violations are they not punishable for, and for what violations are they punishable for, because not everything is the same. Okay. All right, let's read text 40.
The Yamadutas replied that which is prescribed in the Vedas constitutes dharma, the religious principles, and the opposite of that is irreligion. The Vedas are directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, and are self-born. This we have heard from Yamaraja.
Okay, so here the Yamadutas are speaking very intelligently, very knowledgeably, right? Just like we Dharmantu Sakshat Bhagavat Pranitam. We're going to hear that later. Then, well, we're acting according to the Vedas. That's what Dharma is. The Vedas come from Krishna. They're non-different from Krishna. This is what Yamaraj has taught us. He's a Mahajana. Like, this is what we're doing. And it's interesting that they say Vedo Narayana Sakshat. They're saying the name of Narayan, which is the whole basis of the contention here is the name of Narayan. So they're admitting it's kind of like a little precursor. They're admitting that Narayan is everything, that Narayan is the Lord, that Narayan is non-different from the Vedas, that Narayan is Dharma personified, like that. Yeah, Prabhupada makes the point in the purport. It's interesting that Dharma is not actually manufactured by Narayan, but actually Narayan exists eternally and breathes eternally, and therefore Dharma, the injunctions of Narayan, which are come from the breath of Vishnu, are also existing eternally. So there's never a time where there was no Dharma, and then at a certain point in time, Lord Narayan created Dharma. Dharma exists eternally, just as the Lord exists eternally. So, okay. All right, let's do text. Read text 41, please.
The supreme cause of all causes, Narayan, is situated in his own abode in the spiritual world, but nevertheless he controls the entire cosmic manifestation according to the three modes of material nature, Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, and Tamoguna. In this way, all the living entities are awarded different qualities, different names, such as Brahmana, Kshatriya, and Vaishya, different duties according to the Varnashrama institution, and different forms. Thus, Narayan is the cause of the entire cosmic manifestation.
So it's interesting how the Yamadutas are going on and on about Narayan. And you can imagine the Vishnu Dutas are standing there smiling and nodding their heads like, yes, I'm happy that you appreciate Narayan. I'm going to tell you about Narayan soon too. So, okay, let's read text 42 to 49.
The
Hare
sun
Krishna.
And fire.
Go
42.
ahead.
The sun, fire, sky, air, demigods, moon, evening, day, night, directions, water, land, and supersoul himself all witness the activities of the living entity. Text 43rd. The candidates for punishment are those who are confirmed by these many witnesses to have deviated from their prescribed regulated duties. Everyone engaged in fruitive activities is suitable to be subjected to punishment according to his sinful acts. Text 44. O inhabitants of Vaikuntha, you are sinless. But those within this material world are all karmis, whether acting piously or impiously. Both kinds of action are possible for them because they are contaminated by the three modes of nature and must act accordingly. One who has accepted a material body cannot be inactive, and sinful action is inevitable for one acting under the modes of material nature. Therefore, all the living entities within this world are punishable. Text 45. In proportion to the extent of one's religious or irreligious actions, in this life one must enjoy or suffer the corresponding reactions of his karma in the next. Text 46. O best of the demigods, we can see three different varieties of life which are due to the contamination of the three modes of nature. The living entities are thus known as peaceful, restless, and foolish, as happy, unhappy, or in between, or as religious, irreligious, and semi-religious. We can deduce that in the next life, these three kinds of material nature will similarly act. Text 47. Just as springtime in the present indicates the nature of spring times in the past and future, so this life of happiness, distress, or a mixture of both gives evidence concerning the religious and irreligious activities of one's past and future lives. Text 48. The omnipotent Yamraj is as good as Lord Brahma, for while situated in his own abode or in everyone's heart, like the Paramatma, he mentally observes the past activities of a living entity and thus understands how the living entity will act in future lives. And text 49. As a sleeping person acts according to the body manifested in his dreams and accepts it to be himself, so one identifies with his present body, which he acquired because of his past religious or irreligious actions, and is unable to know his past or future lives. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So the Yamadut, the Vishnudutas asked the Yamadutas this question, who is punishable and what is the process for punishment? And this is their answer. So in this section that we just read, the system for punishing others is that in text 40 to 41, it said that, well, the first thing is that the Lord sets the laws of Dharma and he informs humanity about these laws through the Vedas. Then in text 42 and 43, they explain that there are various witnesses that observe the activities of living entities and note those activities down, right? The counting and recording. And then text 45, he says, according to the extent of their pious and impious acts, then they get their karma. 46 and 47, so they say that there's a continuum of karma from past to present to future lives. So there's the punishment goes on. Some people are getting punished for things from their past lives, and in the future they'll get punished for things that they're doing in their present lives. And then in 48 and 49, they say that Yamaraj can see all this. He's supervising all this, and he can see, he knows the past, present, and future lives of everyone, although the living entities cannot see this about themselves. So this is their explanation of the process for punishment. And who is punishable are basically anyone who performs pious or impious acts. Of course, the punishment for pious acts is that you get so-called good things, but it's a punishment because it makes you attached to the material world and it keeps you in the material world. So it's all punishment. But specifically, it's a really painful punishment if you've done something bad, which is what we're looking at. But you can see here in their answer that something that will come up later is that they have an overinflated conception of Yamaraj's qualifications. So they say that the omnipotent Yamaraj, they call him omnipotent, all-powerful, and they say that he directly observes past, present, and future. So they basically think that Yamaraj is the supreme authority, that Yamaraj is the supreme personality of Godhead, that he's all-powerful, that he's all-knowing, that he's God. And so Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada in the purport, he clarifies that it's only by the grace of the super soul, the Paramatma, that Yamaraj can see past, present, and future. It says the actual decisions concerning the next lives of the living entities are made by the super soul, and they are carried out by Yamaraj. So who makes the judgment, who makes the decision, who gives the information, that's the super soul, that's the Lord. And Yamaraj is informed of the situation, informed of what the judgment is, and he is empowered by the Lord to carry out the Lord's will. So he's a servant of the Lord. But the Yamadutas don't know that. They're thinking that he is the ultimate. And that's the problem. Okay, so now the Yamadutas are going to continue their answer. They're going to get a little more technical here in their reply. So let's read text 50 to 55.
Above the 5 senses of perception, the 5 working senses, and the 5 objects of the senses is the mind, which is the 16th element. Above the mind is the 17th element, the soul, the living being himself, who in cooperation with the other 16 enjoys the material world alone. The living being enjoys 3 kinds of situations, namely happy, distressful, and mixed. 51. The subtle body is endowed with 16 parts. The 5 knowledge-acquiring senses, the 5 working senses, the 5 objects of sense gratification, and the mind. This subtle body is an effect of the 3 modes of material nature. It is composed of insurmountably strong desires, and therefore it causes the living entity to transmigrate from one body to another in human life, animal life, and life as a demigod. When the living entity gets the body of a demigod, he is certainly very jubilant. When he gets a human body, he is always in lamentation. And when he gets the body of an animal, he is always afraid. In all conditions, however, he is actually miserable. His miserable condition is called samsriti, or transmigration in material life. Text 52. The foolish embodied living entity, inept at controlling his senses and mind, is forced to act according to the influence of the modes of material nature against his desires. He is like a silkworm that uses its own saliva to create a cocoon and then becomes trapped in it with no possibility of getting out. The living entity traps himself in a network of his own fruitive activities and then can find no way to release himself. Thus, he is always bewildered and repeatedly he dies. Text 53. Not a single living entity can remain unengaged even for a moment. One must act by his natural tendency according to the 3 modes of material nature because this natural tendency forcibly makes him work in a particular way. Text 54. The fruitive activities a living being performs, whether pious or impious, are the unseen cause for the fulfillment of his desires. This unseen cause is the root for the living entity's different bodies. Because of his intense desire, the living entity takes birth in a particular family and receives a body which is either like that of his mother or like that of his father. The gross and subtle bodies are created according to his desire. Text 55. Since the living entity is associated with material nature, he is in an awkward position. But if in the human form of life, he is taught how to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee, this position can be overcome.
Thank you. Yeah, so the Yamadutas go some length at describing the awkward position of the living entities in this material world, how they're struggling with their mind, body, and senses, and the 3 modes of nature, and their karma, and they're getting a certain body according to that, and suffering again. And then they end by saying that, but if in the human form of life they're taught how to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee, this position can be overcome. So this is the point that Srila Prabhupada emphasizes in practically every purport in this section, that this but. So going back to text 51 purport, he says, material nature harasses living entities in different bodies, but if the living entity surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he becomes free from this entanglement. And then, in text 50 also, he says, talking about how material existence is a struggle, he says, but therefore one's only hope, as Krishna advises, is to surrender to him. For Krishna, he can help one become free from the ocean of nescience. And then text 52, Prabhupada writes, getting free is very difficult unless he is helped by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 53, he says that, however, one has to accept the instruction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that one should give up all natural tendencies from material. Did you hear that? I'm having a big thunderstorm here. and take to the service of the Lord. And then in text 54 purport, he says, if a human being is taught to change his subtle body by developing a consciousness of Krishna, at the time of death, the subtle body will create a gross body in which he will be a devotee of Krishna. And then he can get a spiritual body and go back to Godhead. So basically, Srila Prabhupada is, he keeps bringing this point up again and again. So Prabhupada is very optimistic. You can see he's very optimistic, and he wants us to have a positive attitude towards our situation here. That yes, material life is difficult, but if you just surrender to Krishna, it's easy. It's very difficult to control the senses and mind. In fact, it's mentioned here by the Yamadutas that, where is it? Text 52, the foolish embodied living entity is inept at controlling his senses and mind. In other words, he's incapable. Yes, you're incapable of controlling your senses and mind. But Prabhupada says, if you just surrender to Krishna, Krishna will help you. It's hard for you, but it's very easy for Krishna. So again and again, Prabhupada is just giving us this hope and showing us that it's not difficult. Just surrender to Krishna and everything is very easy, right? And Krishna says that, Daivi Yeshagunamayi, Mama Maya Daratyaya. Yes, it's very difficult to overcome. It's impossible to overcome. On your own, you can't overcome material nature. Maya is way too strong for anybody. But Mayam etam tirantite. Wait, I skipped a line. Did I? Daivi Yeshagunamayi, Mama Maya Daratyaya. Mam eva ye prapadyante, mayam eta tirantite. But if you just surrender unto me, then you can very easily cross beyond it. And there's so many verses like that, right? That if one just surrenders to the lotus feet of Mukunda, then this ocean of material existence becomes as easy to cross as a calf stepping over the water in a calf's footprint. So this comes up again and again in scripture, and therefore Prabhupada's bringing up again and again in the purports to give us hope that we just need to surrender to Krishna. And that's, even the Yamadutas are saying that if we somehow we can associate with a devotee, with the Lord, then all this trouble can be overcome. Okay. So let's go ahead and read texts 56 all the way up to 68.
In the beginning,
One of you.
In the beginning, the Brahman named Ajamil studied all the Vedic literatures. He was reservoir of good qualities, good character, and good conduct and good qualities. Firmly established in executing all the Vedic injunctions, he was very mild and gentle. He kept his mind and senses under control. Furthermore, he was always truthful. He knew how to chant the Vedic mantras, and he was also very pure. Ajamil was very respectful to his spiritual master, the fire god, guest, and the elderly members of his household. Indeed, he was free from false prestige. He was upright, benevolent to all living entities, and well behaved. He would never speak nonsense and envy anyone. Once this Brahmana, Ajamil, following the order of his father, went to the forest to collect fruits, flowers, and two kinds of grass called Samvit and Kusha. On the way home, he came upon a Shudra, a very lusty fourth-class man who was shamelessly embracing and kissing a prostitute. The Shudra was smiling, singing, and enjoying as if this were proper behavior. Both the Shudra and the prostitute were drunk. The prostitute's eyes were rolling in the intoxication, and her dress had become loose. Such was the condition in which Ajamil saw them. The Shudra, his arm decorated with turmeric powder, was embraced the prostitute. When Ajamil saw her, the dormant lusty desire in his heart awakened, and in illusion he fell under their control. As far as he patiently tried to remember the instructions of the Shastras, not even to see a woman, with the help of this knowledge and his intellect, he tried to control his lusty desires, but because of the force of Cupid within his heart, he failed to control his mind. In the same way that the sun and the moon are eclipsed by a low planet, the Brahmana lost all his good sense. Taking advantage of this situation, he always thought of the prostitute, and within a short time, he took her as a servant in his house and abandoned all the regulated principles of a Brahmana. Thus, Ajamil began spending whatever money he had inherited from his father to satisfy the prostitute with various material presentations so that she would remain pleased with him. He gave up all his Brahminical activities to satisfy the prostitute. Because his intelligence was pierced by the lustful glance of the prostitute, the victimized Brahman Ajamil engaged in sinful acts in her association. He even gave up the company of his very beautiful young wife, who came from the very respectful Brahmana family. Although born of a Brahmana family, this rascal, bereft of intelligence because of the prostitutes association, earned money somehow or other, regardless of whatever properly or improperly, and used it to maintain the prostitutes' son and daughters. This Brahmana irresponsibly spent his long lifetime transgressing all the rules and regulations of the Holy Scripture, living extravagantly and eating food prepared by a prostitute. Therefore, he is full of sins. He is unclean and is addicted to forbidden activities. This man, Ajamil, did not undergo atonement. Therefore, because of his sinful life, we must take him into the presence of Yamaraj for punishment. There, according to the extent of his sinful acts, he will be punished and thus purified.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, the Yamadutas are completing their answer to the question. They already explained the process for punishment and who's punishable, and now they're specifically explaining why Ajamil is punishable. And it's interesting that the Yamadutas know all the details. They know all the juicy details of Ajamil's life. And we can assume that they know all the juicy details of our lives too. So, and they don't even need to read it on Facebook. They don't need social media to know. They just know. So that's something to think about. But there's some interesting points here in relation to Ajamil, is that in the first couple of verses, it's described how, he was such a nice person. He had all these good qualities. He was a reservoir of good character, good conduct, and good qualities. He was mild and gentle and truthful and expert in Vedic mantras and pure and respectful. And Prabhupada says in the purport that he followed the rules and regulations of celibacy as a perfect brahmachari. Was very soft-hearted, truthful, clean, and pure. So, but Prabhupada says that in spite of that, he says how he fell down in spite of all these qualities. But in spite of those qualities, he still fell down. And so, yeah, that's consistent with what I was saying before, that it's not these qualities that are going to save us. Our brahmachari ashram is not going to save us. Our cleanliness is not going to save us. Our Vedic mantras are not going to save us. What's going to save us is our relationship with Krishna. So, of course, Ajamil was worshiping the Lord. He was worshiping Lord Vishnu, Lord Narayan, But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that Ajamil's worship was primarily like a karma kanda or karma yoga kind of worship. It was mixed. It wasn't, and it was, the primary focus of it was karma, and bhakti was secondary. So it wasn't karma mishra bhakti, it was bhakti mishra karma, like that. So and he mentions that many people they'll have a little bit of bhakti, even though they're not bhakti yogis, but they'll use bhakti because they know, because it says in the scriptures that without at least a little tinge of bhakti, none of the other processes work. So if you want to get the results from your karma, you need to have a little bhakti. If you want to get the results from your gyan, you need to have a little bhakti. So they'll add some of the elements of bhakti in there. And we see that even impersonalists who are really avowed impersonalists who want to merge into Brahman, and even Mayavadis will sometimes worship the deity, sometimes chant the holy names, because they know that without bhakti, they're not going to be successful in their attempts, even though their goal is not bhakti, because the goal of bhakti is prema, is love for Krishna. They don't want love for Krishna. They want to merge with Brahman. They don't even care about seeing Krishna, what to speak about loving him. And if karma is their thing, then they want material gain. They want prosperity and, all the good things of this world. They don't want love for Krishna. But they know that in order to get that, they need to have a little bhakti. So that's what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is. That's how he describes Ajamil's worship of Narayan, that in his mind, he was worshiping, he was collecting flowers, he was going to offer them to the deity, and incense and arti and all that. And he's worshiping Narayan, so it looks like bhakti. That's, devotees also do that. But internally, his motivation or his goal was not love for Krishna. So therefore, because there wasn't sufficient bhakti, then he fell down. That was the reason that in spite of all these good qualities, his perfect brahmachari, his Vedic mantras, his good character, he still fell down. That was the main reason. And then, let's see. So then Prabhupada mentions that, Prabhupada gives some advice for how we can protect ourselves, because in the description of what was the cause of Ajamil's fall down, seeing the prostitute and the low-class man embracing and all that, Prabhupada mentions in the purport to text 60 that in Kali Yuga, a drunk, half-naked woman embracing a drunk man is a very common sight, especially in the Western countries. And restraining oneself after seeing these things is very difficult. I was talking to, maybe many of you know Rasala from Rohini Temple, right? So he was telling me that he's thinking of trying to preach in the West. He's been invited by Yadunandan Swami to go to Spain or somewhere and preach in the West. And I was like, Prabhu, be very careful. Maybe it's better you go in the winter, not the summer. Because during the summer, the ladies don't wear much clothing. It can be very disturbing for you coming from India. I remember there was one brahmachari when I was in London. I was going on book distribution every day, and this brahmachari had just come over he was Bengali, and he had married a British woman. So he had moved to England, and then he was going on book distribution, and he came to me. He was like practically with tears in his eyes. He's like, Mataji, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can live in this country. There's just so many things here that I have to see that I never saw before, and I don't want to see. And so Prabhupada that's what he's talking about. That especially in the Western countries, these sites are very common. Prabhupada says, but nevertheless, if by the grace of Krishna, one adheres to the regulative principles and chants the Hare Krishna mantra, Krishna will certainly protect him. So this is Prabhupada's reassurance that if we just stick to our principles and chant our 16 rounds a day and chant very attentively and pray to Krishna for protection, then by the grace of Krishna, we won't have any problems. Krishna says his devotee is never vanquished. Konteya pratijanihi name bhakti pranasyati. So we don't need to be afraid. We just need to total confidence in Krishna's protection, take shelter of Krishna, follow our principles, do everything to please Guru and Krishna, and everything is going to be okay. Prabhupada says, then there's no need for fear. Otherwise, if we don't do those things, then one's position is very dangerous, especially in Kali Yuga, especially in Western countries. Yeah. Even when I went to Australia, I was in Sydney, Australia. Australia is a very beautiful country, and there's a beach everywhere. The beaches are clean, and it's just like the standard of living is very high. Even like things that devotees like, like beautiful, natural, peaceful environments, good food, like organic food and health foods and whole foods and all the things that devotees get excited about. It's like very easy to find in Australia. And the people also, the general people that live there, they're very relaxed, they're very open, they're friendly, they're generous. So I was doing Sankirtan there, and one Sankirtan devotee said, Prabhupada Priya, be very careful here in Australia. A lot of devotees come here and they don't go back. They come here to do book distribution and they don't go back. They just end up, disappearing into Maya's trap here in Australia. So it was just funny. I mean, I felt so I could see how devotees, going to be attracted to those things. Wow. Because, if you're living in some hellish place, you can think, yeah, material life is so bad. You got to go back to Godhead. But you go and you think, and you see a place, you're like, oh, wow, I can actually enjoy here. And this is like, I can see enjoyment is possible in the material world here in Australia, and all in the mode of goodness, like all the things that devotees like, all the ways that devotees like to enjoy, it's all like right there on a silver platter for you. The people are very beautiful, and yeah. So there other, but so if we keep our regular principles, then we won't. But if we slacken, if we fall into Maya's trap, then it's very dangerous. And that's what happened to Ajamil. Yeah, Prabhupada says again in text 62 purport that because of the force of materialistic life, to maintain self-control is extremely difficult unless one is specifically under the protection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead through devotional service. So specifically, this is it. This is the only protection. Devotional service to Krishna, then being under the protection of the Lord. There's nothing else that will protect us. Okay. And yeah, again, Prabhupada says in the end of text 63, there are so many dangers in this material world that one may fall down from an exalted position at any time. Yet, if one keeps himself always pure and steady by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, he will be safe without a doubt. So yeah, Prabhupada says, don't be surprised who leaves Krishna consciousness. Be surprised who stays. So it's kind of scary. We see like a lot of devotees leave. They stop practicing and they just get too involved in material life. Maya is so strong, and she knows exactly what our weak points are. And she'll poke us there, she'll use that and she'll pull us in. And sometimes we don't know what's happening. We don't know. Our Jamil, he was just looking. He was doing his service and he was just looking. But the problem is he looked too long. So, and before he knew it, he was caught. Imagine he probably heard some rustling in the bushes, and then he looks over there, he sees a man and a woman together, and he's like, what's going on over there? And he takes a closer look, and he's like, oh my God. Before you know it, he's like, oh. And it's mentioned, where is it mentioned? Yeah, it's mentioned in text 65. Prabhupada says in the end of the purport that he's talking about how Ajamil got victimized. Says, how did this happen? He was victimized by the dangerous, lustful glance of the prostitute. So it seems that somehow he made eye contact with that prostitute, because otherwise the lustful glance, if someone's just looking at you, it doesn't affect you so much. But if they look you in the eye, you get that, you make eye contact with a lustful person, then it's very dangerous. And of course, prostitutes are trained in this. This is their profession. So they know how to capture a man for their business, just same way as any businessman. He knows what to say and what to do and how to act with people to make them his customers. So prostitutes, they also know the ways and means to, get customers. And they know that eye contact is very important, that you make that eye contact and you send some lustful messages through that connection that's made, and it's very powerful. So so he's looking too long, and he made eye contact with this woman, and that was it. He was caught. Maya caught him. And then later he became further entangled. Prabhupada mentions how eating the food that she cooked. So food, he says, food prepared by an unclean, sinful man or woman, especially a prostitute, is extremely infectious. Ajamil ate such food, and therefore he was subject to be punished by Yamaraj. So that's why it's very important for devotees we have to be very strict about what we eat, very careful what we eat and who cooks it, that it should be cooked by devotees and offered to Krishna with love and devotion. Otherwise, even if we're eating here and there and everywhere, street food and things. Yeah, I was talking to a devotee here, and she's a Indian devotee. She lives in our Dallas community, and she was asking me about, I just come back from India. I was just in India for 4 months. So she's like, oh, when you were there, did you eat at this place? Did you eat at that place? Oh, I really love the way, I love the sweets from this sweet shop, or I love this whatever preparation from this street stall in Vrindavan. And I was just like, Mataji, I don't eat at street stalls. I don't eat at restaurants. I'm sorry. I'm sure it's delicious, but I just don't go there. I couldn't. I wasn't trying to make her feel bad or that she had done something wrong, but at the same time, I just could not connect with what she was. She was expecting me to be like, oh yeah, I ate there too, and they're so good, and wow, and we were going to bond over the experience of enjoying the same thing, and I was just like, nope. So we just have to not go there. It may look good, it may be our favorite preparation, oh, that place, I know, or something that, especially if before you became a devotee, you used to eat there, so what it tastes like, and it's so good, and it was just like your mother used to make it, and or even better than your mother used to make it. But no, we have to control our senses and control our minds, because these things are infectious. And also they send a message to Krishna that, Krishna, I'm choosing to, I'm not choosing you, I'm choosing Maya. And when Maya sees that we're choosing her, she's like, oh, you're coming my way? Yeah, let's go, and then she'll send another attraction and another thing. And because Krishna saw that that's what he wanted, he's not going to interfere with our free will. So then he'll let us go there. He might, of course, Krishna cares, so he's going to try to protect us, but if we're insistent, then Krishna's not going to stop us. Okay, so there's, so Prabhupada's emphasizing here in this purport how we can only be saved by Krishna's protection, and we have to want Krishna's protection. And this is why, because we can raise this question that there are many reasons why Ajamil, even though he was a Vaishnava, even though he was worshipping Lord Vishnu, why was he not saved? So one answer is that, his bhakti was mixed, or his karma, more like his karma was, he had just a drop of bhakti. But the other answer is that he didn't want to be protected. He actually, it's not mentioned that at that moment when he saw his mind being attracted to the prostitute, he wasn't afraid of that. He didn't call out to Krishna for help. He didn't chant Narayan at that time. He chanted Narayan later, but he chanted Narayan that time, and then he would have been saved. But he didn't. He didn't take shelter of Krishna. And he allowed himself to make eye contact with her. So that's very dangerous. She looked at him. She was trying to make eye contact with him, but he should not have allowed that. So one thing, I actually learned this just recently we have a brahmachari visiting, and we were talking, and I don't know how the topic came up, but he told me that his spiritual master had instructed him that when you speak to a woman, especially a young woman, don't look her in the eye. Just look at her nostrils. Look at her nose. Look at her nose, or specifically the nostrils, because the nostrils are easier to focus on. And he said he always does that. And there was a young lady that was sitting with us too, and she said, "You mean whenever you talk to me, you just look at my nose?" And he said, "Yes." And he said, you didn't notice?" And she said, "No, I thought you were looking at my eyes." And he said, "Yeah, that's the whole point, is that because see, if a man's talking to a woman and the man is like looking at the floor or looking off to the side or something, it's really annoying, you know? It's like the woman's just going to think you're a total fanatic, like, what's wrong with you? Especially if it's a devotee, she'll be sympathetic and understand, okay, he's trying to protect himself. But if it's not a devotee, she'll just think there's something wrong with you, like you're a little bit like mentally not quite well. Or that you're being dishonest, you're trying to hide something, you know. Look me, like, you know, people say, look me in the eye when you say that, to know that you're telling the truth. So this is a really good strategy. And, you know, men, women can use this strategy, that whenever you're talking to a member of the opposite sex, you don't want to look like a fanatic or like, you know, somebody with, you know, a troubled person or something. So, but at the same time, you don't want to make eye contact because it's dangerous. So just look at their nose. And specifically, if you look at the nostrils, because nostrils, like, it's not a very attractive thing to look at, then you won't be attracted. And at the same time, they'll think that you're looking them in the eye because the nose is close enough to the eyes that it's almost eye contact. So they'll be satisfied that you're paying attention to them. You're, you know, you're there for them, but you're not getting pulled into anything more than that. Yeah, so that's a little practical tip that I learned recently that I wanted to share with you. And that if Ajamil had used it, he might have been safe. Yeah. And then the other reason that he fell down, another problem, is that he kept looking. So it said that, I mean, when we first see something, it can be by mistake, right? You're walking down the street and you see something, oh, and you look away. That was by mistake. But if we look again, that's our choice. That's not a mistake. That was an exercise of free will. So, like I said, Krishna responds to our choices. So if we're choosing Maya, then Krishna's gonna be like, okay, well, that's not my desire for you, but unwilling sanction. Prabhupada says unwilling sanction. And that's how devotees get themselves into trouble. So yeah, these are some things, important points to note that we can use for ourselves, and we can also use them you know, whenever we have to give advice to junior devotees about how to resist material temptations, material attractions, especially with members of the opposite sex, is that, you know, take shelter of Krishna, chant, call out the name of Krishna whenever you're feeling those attractions or temptations. You know, when you're talking to a member of the opposite sex, look at their nose. Don't look them in the eye, avoid eye contact. And I'm actually very good at it. I just do it instinctually now, because when I was on book distribution, I read in Chaitanya Charitamrita that if you look in the eyes of a materialist, it's contaminating. You have to look at the sun afterwards. So I was in England, so there's no sun to look at. So then I started looking at the person's mouth. I would look at the person's mouth because it would help me also to understand what they're saying. I focus on when you see the lips move, you can kind of like hear what they're saying and read the lips. I got in the habit of looking at people's mouths. So I kind of do that. And if I have to force myself to make eye contact, if I, you know, I'm talking to if I'm like mentoring a young girl and she really needs that personal connection, and I'm like looking at my mouth, I have to be like, look her in the eye. She needs that, you know, because by habit, I do that. But it's really good. It's a good habit. So we can, you know, that's some advice we can give to junior devotees. And also, if you happen to see something attractive, don't look twice. Just look at it and look away and chant Hare Krishna if you can, without, you know, don't stay contemplating the objects of the senses, because dhyato vishayam, like we know what that leads to. By contemplating the object of the senses, attachment develops. Attachment, lust anger delusion bewilderment of memory, lose our intelligence and fall down. So that's exactly what happened to Ajamil. He went through the exact sequence that Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita. So, and also be careful what we eat, because if we eat food cooked by people who are full of material desires, then that can affect us. So eat only Krishna prasadam. And make sure that our bhakti is actually bhakti. That it's not mixed, because part of the reason that Ajamil was not protected was because he just had a tiny drop of bhakti and it was predominantly something else. So if we're doing our devotional activities, to get material profit or adoration or distinction or, a position or something, then that's basically karma. It's karma yoga, or it's sakam karma yoga. It's not bhakti. It's not pure bhakti. Our goal of all of our activities should be to develop love for Krishna, to please Krishna, please the devotees, and develop love for Krishna and his devotees, and then we'll always be safe. Because our heart's in the right place, and Krishna will see that our heart's in the right place. He's also in our heart, and he's going to make sure it stays in the right place. Okay, so that ends this section. And it sounds like the Yamadutas have spoken very well, wouldn't you say? They're talking about, they're speaking very reasonably, they're speaking philosophically. The process of punishment for sin, they outline, they have faith in the Vedas and Lord Narayan, and they're doing what Yamaraj told them. Their description of Ajamil's life, so many sinful activities he performed, it seems like he definitely, is a sinful person who needs punishment. So it seems like they're right, they're justified in wanting to drag him to Yamaraj. But so in tomorrow's class, we're going to see the Vishnu Duta's response to their reasoning. Okay, whew, we made it. So, yes, somebody had their hand up there. Jio Kumari? Yeah, go ahead, please.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Mataji, as you discussed, it depends upon our free will whether we get protected by Krishna or not. If it depends upon our free will, then what about Krishna? He won't protect us if we are not willing to get protected. It's like, I'm not getting it. Like you said, that if there is something which is very provoking, if we see something, when we should not look at those things again. If we are looking at those things again, then it is our free will. Okay, then okay, if I saw it, anything, I see it, okay, then what about Krishna? Won't he protect me? Okay, I have these desires, I am conditioned, made up I'm under the influence of Rajotamo, Satogun. Obviously, sometimes things are not under our control. And what about Krishna? He won't protect us.
Is Krishna, I thought Krishna loved me. He's really going to just let me go so easily like that? Right? Well, the thing is that Krishna protects us in different ways. And if we really want to enjoy something, he'll let us. Even if it means our leaving the association of devotees for some time. That's what happened to Ajamil. But ultimately, he also protected Ajamil, right? He inspired him to name his child Narayan. He inspired him to chant Narayan all the time, like all day long, every day, for years of his life. And he inspired him to chant even at the time of death. And at the time when he chanted Narayan, at the time of his death, he gave him the remembrance of himself. Right? Remembrance comes from Krishna. Right? Sarvasya chamam hridi sanivishto matasmritya jnanam apohanam cha. That Krishna is situated in the heart, and he gives knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So Krishna enabled Ajamil to remember him while chanting, even though all those other times he wasn't thinking of Narayan, he was just thinking of his son. But at the last moment, when he needed it the most, that crucial time of death, he was able to remember Narayan when he chanted Narayan. So that was Krishna. And so, yeah, if we're very attached to some material thing and we want to enjoy it, then Krishna will protect us, but he'll protect us the way he protected Ajamil. And we see that many devotees, great devotees in our movement, they go away, they do a load of nonsense, and then ultimately they come back. And they still remember Krishna at the time of death. But don't think that, oh, okay, great. So I'll just like go do a load of nonsense and I don't need to worry. I can do whatever I want for the rest of my life. And at the time of death, Krishna's going to help me remember him, go back home, back to Godhead. No, that's not going to work. Because if we do it intentionally, then it's an offense, right? Just like it's the seventh offense against the holy name. And we'll talk about that in tomorrow's class, is to do things with the intention that I'm going to do this sinful activity and that I'll chant Hare Krishna and it'll be all right. But Ajamil wasn't doing it intentionally. He was just in Maya. And he wasn't thinking, I'll do all this Maya and then later Krishna will save me. He was just in total Maya. He wasn't thinking of Krishna at all. He had no thoughts of his salvation. But Krishna did. Krishna was thinking of his salvation. So because he didn't offend the Lord, then the Lord was looking after him. But if we do something offensively, then the Lord, he's like, you offended me. Sorry. Yeah, we have to be very careful about offenses.
Thank you.
But the best thing is, just don't go there. Just chant Hare Krishna. Actually, I might have told you this before, but something that I read, a little Prabhupada pastime that really touched my heart and is really instructive for us, is that there's one devotee who was serving, I think it was Shruta Kirti Prabhu. Shruta Kirti Prabhu was serving Srila Prabhupada, and he would chant his 16 rounds every day, but there was one day that he was really busy and or maybe he was not managing his time so well, and he only managed to chant 12 rounds, and then he just went to bed and he thought, I'll finish them the next day. So then that morning, early in the morning, Prabhupada rang his bell, and Shruta Kirti woke up and he went to Prabhupada's room, and then Prabhupada, he'd never asked Shruta Kirti this question before, but this time he asked the question, so are you chanting all your 16 rounds? And Shruta Kirti was like, no, the day that I didn't do it is the day that he had to ask. It's like that. The spiritual masters know these things. So Shruta Kirti admitted, Prabhupada, I generally do, but yesterday I wasn't able to finish. I only chanted 12. And then Prabhupada says, no, you need to chant 16 rounds every day. He said, if you chant 16 rounds every day, Krishna will be holding your hand. And just like, a small child, like a 1-year-old or 2-year-old child that's just learning to walk, but is still unsteady. When they walk, the father holds the hand. So the father's holding the hand. Even if the child is about to fall, the father tightens his grip and keeps the child in standing position, right? He might be hanging there by the hand, but he's not falling to the ground and hurting himself. So if you chant your 16 rounds every day, then Krishna will be holding your hand. And even if you slip, even if you stumble, you're not going to fall because Krishna's got a hold of you. But if you don't chant 16 rounds a day, if you chant less than 16 rounds a day, then Krishna's not holding your hand. And you maybe feel like you're walking by Krishna's side, but if you slip, you're going to fall away. So it's very important for us to chant 16 rounds and make sure that Krishna is holding onto our hand. And then even if we have some accident or mistake or attraction or something, Krishna will hold on to us so we don't get ourselves in trouble. But it's up to us. We have to do our part, right? We have to do our part, what we agreed to do. Chant our 16 rounds every day. Okay, Rukmini Hari Sevani.
Thank you so very much, Mataji, for the session. It was really amazing. I have learned a lot. Mataji, my question I want to ask is, you said that Ajamil, actually, it was like Antim Narayana Smriti. When he said Narayana, it was, and we have to do like, it's not like that chanting only will help us to get Krishna. There are 64 limbs of Bhakti, and the motive is that Smartavya Satatam Vishnu. So he got the Smriti, Antim Narayan Smriti. So please help me to understand that then even why he was not able. Yes, you told everything, but still I'm not able to imbibe.
Yeah, because he wasn't, he remembered Narayan, but his desire to go to the abode of Narayan was not so strong. Right? He still needed to cultivate his bhakti. Right? Rupa Goswami says that we need a ticket to go back to Godhead, and the price for that ticket is our loyam. We need to have the intense greed. I really want to serve Krishna eternally. I want to develop my spiritual body and serve him in my ecstatic spiritual form and exchange loving exchanges with Krishna and Goloka. And we really have to want to be with the Lord and see the Lord and serve the Lord and be in the personal association to go there. Otherwise, if we're just kind of like neutral towards the Lord, and we've done, material world, Krishna, whatever, Hare Krishna, then it may not be enough to get us there. Or Prabhupada talks about this. He says that if we remember Krishna at the time of death, but our desire is not that strong, then we'll take birth as a devotee. We'll take birth again in the material world in a devotee family in order to be able to cultivate that very strong attachment. But yeah, like I said, there's no one in Vaikuntha who's smoking cigarettes and wishing they were somewhere else. Everybody, you have to be very much wanting to be there to go there.
Mataji, can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
Mataji, when we chant, we it's like that we say that, oh Krishna, I know I'm an offender, and yes, I did mistake. Now please accept me, please forgive me like this. And meanwhile, having this, no, that is not my level. But if you have desire to know my Swarupa, so is it okay to have? I have not that level. I'm not at the level of Asakti. Nirvriti is not done even. But
there's no harm with desiring it. Yeah, we should desire it. We should know that, okay, I'm not at a level to, but we should desire it. There's nothing wrong with desiring perfectional stages. We should desire a perfectional stage. We should all desire to be a pure devotee. We should desire to have ecstatic love for Krishna. We should desire to, realize our eternal relationship with Krishna and serve Krishna in that relationship. Yeah, if we're not desiring these things, what are we going to desire? We have to desire something. I mean, these are also Krishna's desires. Krishna also wants us to return to him. He wants us to, reestablish our eternal relationship with him and our eternal spiritual identity. And that's what Krishna wants. So that's what it means to, we need to align our desires with Krishna's desires. We need to say that, Krishna, let thy will be done. Whatever you want for me, I also want. Where you want me to be, I also want to be. How you want me to serve you, I also want to serve you. Just please reveal that to me. Because right now I'm so much ignorance, I don't know. I don't know who I am, what I'm supposed to do, where I'm supposed to be. Right? So the more that we can ask Krishna, please, step by step, please reveal these things to me, make me qualified, let me serve you so that I can develop the qualification to know these things, because it's not cheap. We need to be qualified, we need to be deserving. So Krishna, I understand, I accept that I'm not qualified to know these things now, but please help me to become qualified. Direct me in such a way that I can become qualified. Give me the association that I need to purify my heart so that I can become qualified, because this is my goal of life. And I'm totally dependent on you to achieve it, because I have no power on my own to achieve anything in this world. What to speak of these highly exalted stages of devotional service? So we should desire. That should be our desire. That should be our main desire in life. And we should express that desire to Krishna and pray for him to help us step by step make progress towards achieving it. And everything else is just secondary. Okay, we're a little bit over time, but I'm gonna be with you all tomorrow, same time, same place. And we'll cover the next 2 chapters. Hopefully, Krishna somehow blessed us to get through this one in a reasonable time. So let's pray he does the same thing tomorrow. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol.